Yuck.
Hello and welcome to the Village Council meeting for Monday, May 18th. Judy, if you want to call the roll.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Shu. Here. Samaria.
Here.
Pierce. Here. We are expecting Carmen Brown in about 5 minutes. Also present is Village Manager Johnny Burns, Assistant Village Manager Elise Giardullo, and we have with us
Special guest.
Lineheads from AMP.
Cool. So yeah, we're going to start out with a work session for the first hour, and then we'll do a regular council meeting after that. So I think it's, I don't know, Johnny, if you want to do anything besides just hand it over?
We can handle, I mean, Craig has worked with him for quite a long time, and he has worked with the village on the power portfolio. He knows everything from where we started to where we are, and they guide us in what we buy and purchase, and so I'll let him take over.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, appreciate it. So like John said, I've been with AMP for a long while, 20 years, and I'm from the planning department, so I'm one of the folks that figure out how much power do we need, where we're going to get it from, and also how much it's going to cost. And so what we have today is a presentation. We're going to go over how much power you guys need, and then we're going to go over where you're getting that from. We're going to cover some other costs to the grid, like the cost for transmission and reliability, and then we'll end on overall cost that the village is seeing. So as we go through, if you guys have questions, feel free to stop me at any time. Before I start, I'll kind of give a brief overview of what AMP is. AMP is a collection of municipalities. You know, it'd be hard for the village of Yellow Springs to go out and build a really big hydroelectric plant all on its own. But if you ban 130 different municipalities all together, now you do have the economies of scale. And that's essentially what we are, is a government nonprofit entity that is a collection of a whole bunch of municipalities all throughout the region that we work together to navigate the markets and to build power plants and to help our municipals, i.e. you guys.
Are there other things like AMP, like if there's 130 that we're a part of, are there other, collaboratives as well?
So we are the collaborative. We originally were AMP Ohio because we were the collaborative for Ohio, all the Ohio municipals. Since the markets changed, it made more sense to kind of be a regional entity. And so we're now the largest municipal aggregator in our region. There is other aggregators, like so the co-ops also aggregate to do things together, but the co-ops are kind of a separate thing. And then the investor-owned utilities are all separate. Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So starting off, we'll look at the village's monthly energy usage. So the red line is so far this year, and then you can see the different colored lines are previous years. The white area is what we're forecasting for 2027. Now, some things to point out about this, you see how that line goes higher in the summertime? You guys use more electricity because all those air conditioners are running. On a hotter day like today, you walk down the street, you hear those air conditioners humming, use more electricity, higher loads. We also see higher loads in the wintertime. That's from folks that have electric heat. So there's also a lot of natural gas heat in the area. So there's some, if you guys were purely natural gas heat or electric heat, you'd see a lot higher loads in the wintertime than even the summer. So you guys have a little bit of a balance here in the village between electric and natural gas heat. But you can kind of see, and then it goes lower in the spring and the fall. Some things to note from this, you can see we're not really anticipating any major changes, but we have seen a little bit of a creep up here in the last couple of years. That kind of goes with, you guys have had some residential development that have provided a little bit of an increase in energy. So this is your overall energy usage, how much your energy you're using. On the next slide, we look at your highest load hour for the year, or your peak demand. So this becomes important because we look at this for some different planning of like what's your maximum usage. And you can see a couple of years ago, back in 2023, it was 7.3, 8.2, and then last year, 8.5. Now, this does have fluctuation based on how hot it is. So the hotter it is on that hot, this is usually for you guys that hottest day in the summer when everybody's really sweating, those air conditioners are working really hard. That's when you typically set your peak. And so you can see the day, the month, and then the hour ending is how we tell time in the hour in the electric industry. So like hour ending 17 is from 4 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
So can I ask
yeah.
why in 2025 it was July, end of July versus end of August from the previous?
It's a lot about the heat. And when that heat arrives, as well as a weekday. Typically, a lot of times we see peaks on weekdays.
Okay.
But it's just when is the hottest point of the summer typically.
So in 2025, it just happened to be that it was a month earlier than the previous years.
Yeah. And a lot of times we see a lot of peaks in July, but just the last couple of years, and we had some August. So.
Craig, can you explain why that's important?
So we have some charges that are measured off of peak demand. We're going to talk about them later. And your load, when we get to these summer hours where loads are really high and your load is high, there's different charges that are based off of that. Now, there's no charges based on your peak demand, but there's charges based on your load during others' peak demand. So like when Dayton Power and Light or AES peaks and when the big regional area peaks. And so we'll talk about that when we get later. So the next slide, that shows your load over time. And this goes, now my eyes are like squinting a little bit, all the way back to 1991. The blue line is your peak load. The red line is the village's energy usage. And you can see it was all the way up higher around the year 2000, and then it kind of had a nice steady decline. And then we've seen some pretty flat loads here for a good period. And then just at the very end here, we've seen a little bit of a kick up. That's kind of what that kick up with some of that development that we were talking about, a little bit of increased usage. So back in the 80s and 90s, we saw pretty much across the industry, people adding more things to their houses, using more electricity. Then we go into the 2000s, and we had energy efficiency, which helped lower things and keep things flat, even though people are still using things in their house. So we've seen a lot more flatter loads across our energy in our industry in the last 15 years or so. than what we've seen previously. All right. So the next slide breaks out the three major types of power charges. We have energy, transmission, and installed capacity. Energy, this is the majority of your cost, probably around 70%. This is going out, and the more you use, the more we have to go buy. So all of that, every hour we're using electricity, we have to go get resources to get that. So it's a variable cost because it depends on how much you use. On the wholesale side, we deal in dollars per megawatt hour. On the municipal side, you guys deal in cents per kilowatt hour. So I'll try to talk in cents per kilowatt hour tonight, but that's the big unit for energy. The other two big charges that make up the other 30% of your wholesale power costs are transmission and installed capacity. Transmission is the cost to build and maintain those big high voltage power lines. So when you're driving around the area and you see those big steel structures, we have to pay as a municipal to use those big transmission lines. That cost is fixed for the year, so it's a fixed demand cost. And then installed capacity. This is a reliability charge to make sure there's enough power plants out there. So you think on those really hot days, you want to make sure you have enough power plants. There's a separate charge that the grid charges for that. And that's fixed on a month-to-month basis as well. So we're going to start by going through all of your energy resources. And then we'll talk about your transmission and then your capacity resources and costs. Okay. So starting off with your energy resources. On the next slide, you'll see a pie chart here with a lot of different pieces on it. And that's part of our overall strategy. My job in a way is not that dissimilar from a financial planner, right? And as a financial planner, you'd have a bad financial planner if they would tell you invest all of your retirement into one stock. You want to diversify. And that's what we've done with the Village's power supply here. You can see a lot of different pieces. When we look, some of the bigger ones on the bottom left, Meldal, Greenup, Amp Hydro, those are all hydroelectric facilities on the Ohio River. We'll talk about those. We'll talk about all of these more. On the very top, you'll see Brown County and Erie County landfill. So those are landfill gas generation facilities. NYPA is also a hydro facility, and then we have some wind and solar as well. And then the last little bit of balancing power we are currently purchasing from the market. So we'll walk through each one of these pieces. All right, so the first we'll start talking about the Brown County and Erie County landfills. So in a landfill, as the trash decomposes, it generates gas. And instead of just burning that gas and flaring it, that's what used to happen at landfills, is they used to flare their gas. That gas can be collected and run through a engine, kind of like a train engine, to generate electricity. Because that's coming from a renewable source, and it's gas that would have been vented to the atmosphere otherwise, it's a renewable generation. And another nice thing about this is it's very steady. These landfills, they're producing gas very steady. It doesn't matter if it's winter, summer, daytime, nighttime. They're very steady producers, so they're base load. So this helps to fill that bottom part or that base part of the Village's resources. These are power purchase agreements so that we don't own these. A third party owns both of these. We are agreeing to buy the power for a fixed price for a fixed term. So you can see Brown County landfill there. We're buying that through 2032. Right now the rate is around 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Erie County, we're buying through 2028, and the rate is around 4 cents a kilowatt hour with all of the costs accounted for. You can see on there something called 50% of RECs. RECs are renewable energy credits. This is the right to call the power green. When we entered into these deals, the developer wanted to keep half of the RECs, so we get half the RECs, the developer keeps half of the RECs. When these projects get to 2033 and 2029, we are anticipating that we should hopefully be able to renegotiate these contracts for another extension. Neither of these landfills, they're still in operation. Trash is coming in. So, and even once they do close, they have a nice long tail life on the end of them. Okay, so the next resource we'll talk about is hydroelectricity, and this is kind of another base load resource. All the hydros we're going to talk about next are located on the Ohio River. So it's a little bit different. A lot of times when we think of hydroelectric plants, we think of like the Hoover Dam, right? That was put in primarily for power generation and for water irrigation. This is a little bit different. These are low head dams, so they're only 20, 30 feet tall, and they're on the Ohio River, and they were put in to make the river navigable, meaning so that barges can go up and down the river. So you see on the left-hand side, there's locks. In the middle part, there is a dam, the traditional dam that was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. What we do is we go in on the other side and we build a 10-story building in the middle of the river. So building a 10-story building in the middle of the river is not an easy thing to do. It's expensive. So these resources are more expensive. But once you've built these hydroelectric facilities should be around a really long time. So that's the idea here, that these are more longer-term assets. And you can see on the next slide then where we have them located. So you guys are receiving hydropower from 5 different hydro facilities. You are part owners of these facilities. So these are not a power purchase agreement where you're agreeing to buy the power. You guys are actual owners through AMP. We've got Smithland in southern Illinois, Cannelton in southern Indiana, Meldal, Greenup, and Willow Island, all located here in Ohio. So the next slide, we look at these projects. AMP Hydro, that is 3 different hydro facilities. That's Smithland, Cannelton, and Willow Island, all collected together. That project came online in 2016. Right now, this is your most expensive resource. It's around 14 cents a kilowatt hour. That'll go through 2049, the debt service or the mortgage to pay the power plant. And then once we hit 2050, we should be left with some really cheap power for a very long time. Similarly, Meldal and Greenup, those came online both in 2016. Meldal was a new build that goes through 2049. Greenup was actually an existing hydro facility owned by the city of Hamilton that we bought half of the production off of. We bought the facility off of them, and then they retained half of the ownership there.
So
yeah.
when you say the price will go down a lot, like how much?
So before you account for renewable energy credits, we should be around 1 cent a kilowatt hour. If you account for renewable energy credits, the way some of these facilities are worth, we could see rates negative with that. So now there'll be some, ongoing maintenance cost, and there's some personnel and taxes and things like that. But the vast majority of the cost of these is building that 10-story concrete building that is essentially a skyscraper in the middle of the river. And of that 10 stories, 8.5 is underwater. So that is by far and away the biggest cost of these. And these dams aren't, they should be around 100, 150 years, hopefully. And they're not really there. They're there to make the river navigable. In fact, you can see a picture here. The top is what Cannelton looks like most of the time. But you can see they're not even there for flood control. This is what Cannelton, the bottom picture is what Cannelton looks like when the river is flooding with high water. So they're just there to make the river navigable there.
So it seems like 35 years to pay for them, basically. And then after that, the price plummets.
Yes.
So I assume you're saying that even after having done the math of the plummeting years and the expensive years, it's still worth being part of a series of options, not like obviously when you hear, $1 or positive with RECs or negative or however the idea that the RECs would make it so that it would give us money instead of us paying money. You're essentially saying that you do the math problem and it's not like, put all your money into this. You still want it to be part of a piece of a larger puzzle.
Yeah, and that's because they're expensive today. If you got all of your power from the hydro projects today, your rate would be much higher.
And there's no way to collateralize that debt in some way?
Well, we've issued bonds out through 2049.
Yeah.
That's a long time to issue a bond back when we did that back in 2016.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess it's possible that we could get to a point if interest rates are good and we wanted to refinance and push, like you can do with your home, like you can refinance and push the debt out more. You could theoretically probably do that.
Yeah.
On the other side, we continue to pay. This is kind of an investment for future generations is what we've always looked at it as, of you can continue to pay down your debt service as well if you're comfortable with your rates. So that's one of the things too. All of these decisions on these projects that you guys own, they're all made by participant committees, i.e. the owners, which you are an owner of. So we get together once or twice a year, all of the different owners, and we present them all the different options, and they vote on how they want to proceed with all of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I guess we kind of know, we're starting to get a good feeling of what costs will be without debt service, because the first hydro plant we built was at Belleville. You guys were not a participant of that project, but the debt service on that project rolls off in 2030. So we're within a couple of years of that, our first hydro facility rolling off its mortgage. All right, the next hydro resource you guys have is called NYPA Power. This comes from New York Power Authority. This was 2 hydroelectric plants built back in the 1950s by the federal government. The big one is on the Niagara River, and the other smaller one, slightly smaller, is on the St. Lawrence River. So if you ever go to Niagara Falls and you go just downriver, you'll see a big hydro plant on both the United States and the Canadian side. You guys are actually getting some power from the one on the American side. The reason being is because they were built by the federal government, it was deemed that public power should have some of this power. And so the state of Ohio and subsequently Yellow Springs gets a slice of this. So we don't own this, but we contract to buy it. And that project, the debt is paid off because the federal government paid to build this facility in the first place. So all we have to do is pay for the maintenance cost and getting the power from northern New York down here. And that's $10 a megawatt hour, so that's about 1 cent a kilowatt hour is what we're paying for this power. So this really gave us the idea of how do we get more really cheap, renewable, low-cost power? And it was like, well, if we build hydro and we pay off that debt service, we end up with stuff like this NYPA Power. So unfortunately, we can't get more of it. The state of Ohio is only allocated a certain share. And as they, it says currently the deal goes through 2032, but as they keep extending the license to operate these hydro plants, then they keep extending this agreement. All right. So the next resource is a wind deal we have with Blue Creek Wind Farm. This is 152 wind turbines located up in Van Wert, Ohio, just in the northwest corner of the state, so not too far from here. They were put in 2012, and we had a wind deal with Blue Creek Wind Farm, and then we changed over to Locust Ridge Wind Farm for a couple years, and now we're back buying from Blue Creek Wind Farm. And that was just due to economics and share of the wind farm that was available. So right now, the current deal goes through 2026 through 2029. We do get some RECs with that. Now they're generic RECs. So what are generic RECs? So there's different types of RECs out there. Generic RECs are your base RECs. But then there's different states that have different markets. And so some states will pay extra for renewable energy credits that are generated there or within a certain region or a certain type of power. So right now with this deal, the wind farm, the effective rate is around 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's kind of in the middle of the road there. So everything we've talked about up to this point is kind of a steady producer. Now it's still, it still could be intermittent because you can see like here, the wind doesn't blow as much in the summer, blows a little bit more in the winter. And the hydros, they do have some, as we get more or less rainfall, they ebb up and down. But in general, they produce just as much during the daytime as they do the nighttime. All of these resources that we've talked about so far. So we consider all of these base load resources. This will get important in a couple slides when we start layering in what your portfolio looks like. So the next resource we'll talk about is not a base load resource. It's more of an on-peak resource, and that's the solar facility located here in Yellow Springs. Came online back in 2017, built originally with AEP, although I believe they've sold that off to another vendor. The cost right now escalates at 2% a year. This is a power contract outside of AMP that you guys have directly with this supplier, but we still keep track of it. And you can see the production there, about 1,200 megawatt hours. The big thing is it's located behind your meter. And when it's located behind your meter, that means when we get billed for capacity and transmission, we'll talk about those charges later, but it helps to offset your load so that you don't have to buy as much capacity and transmission. And when we look at what those units are generating this year in capacity and transmission revenue, it's about $63,000, or it impacts the rate by about 50 cents a megawatt hour. So right now we show this rate close to $100 a megawatt hour, but with the credits from lowering your capacity and transmission, that pulls the effective rate down to about $50 a megawatt hour, or 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's one of the nice things, is that this is behind your guys' meter and helps to offset your capacity and transmission costs. So the next slide, this shows your overall portfolio. So this is a chart for your load in the month of April. So just last month. The black line, that's your load. Each one of those fingers is a day. So you can see your load is higher during the daytime. It's lower at night. It can have some fluctuation. So April was a pretty normal weather month, so you didn't see too much up and down, but it can be higher or lower based on how hot or how cold it is. Then we look at the different resources layered in there. On the bottom, the gray, those are the landfill units. That's one of the great things about the landfill. They are very steady producers. It doesn't matter what's going on. They pretty much steady right through. Then we layer in the hydros. Those are all of the different blues. And you can see some of those hydros are a lot more volatile with the water conditions. So not as good of water conditions in the front part of the month, better water conditions in the back part of the month. And then we have the green, which is the wind yield. That's a fairly steady producer as well. And then it's a little hard to see. The orange on top is solar. April's an okay solar month. The summer is a little bit better. But you can see those produced during the day, so little fingers. Anywhere where you see yellow, that's where we're having to buy power from the market. Anywhere you see resources above the black line, that's where you're having to sell power back to the market. And that's where we get into the trick. That's, one of the questions might be, well, why don't we get, entirely off of the market? Well, we need that market to balance. You can see for the month of April, there were times where we had too much, and there were times we had too little. And we want to try to balance that out so that we're not too much on the market. We also, especially in the summertime, you guys will need more, but that if we layer in, let's say, more big resources that produce all year long, well, that's going to make us even longer in the shoulder months like April. So it's a balancing game of not having too much or too little. The next slide shows the hourly prices. So when we buy from the hourly market or we sell, we do that at whatever the hourly price is. That changes actually every 5 minutes. This is set by the big balancing grid called PJM. I'll talk about them a little more later. But you can see it bounces around. It goes, typically it's around 5 cents a kilowatt hour, but you can see for the month there were times where it got up over 15 cents a kilowatt hour. When we go back to, let's see, I'm going to get my math right here. But when we went back to January during that really strong cold spell, we saw prices all the way up at $1,000 a megawatt hour, which is close to 100 cents a kilowatt hour. Right.
So, sorry, just to go back. So when we're buying from the market, so all the ones that we have steady contracts with they would all count as renewable sources, right? Mm-hmm. So then, if we're buying from the market, then are we buying coal? Or are we buying?
The market is like a swimming pool or a giant lake, right? And there can be different types of things that fill that.
Yeah.
So when we can say, okay, on average, that lake is, right now, that lake is mostly natural gas, a little bit of coal, a fair amount of nuclear, and then a small amount of renewables is what's getting dumped into that lake. But it's hard to say that it's one individual thing. Now, when we look at it from a sustainability report breakdown, we take the average of what the market is and then say that that's what you're getting from when you're buying from the market. Yeah.
And the assumption is that the reason you don't want to produce more, like, have more sources, or, on the right side of that graph where we're selling back, is that we're probably selling back at a rate that's lower. And
Yeah.
so the math doesn't work very well.
Yeah, especially, let's go back to like a resource like the hydros. That's pretty expensive. You definitely don't want to be buying that at 15 cents and then turning around and selling it at 5. Okay. Now, some of the resources that we have that are a lot closer to coming out 4 or 5 cents, that wouldn't be as big of a deal. If you go to the next slide, this might actually help a little bit. So this is your overall energy position. So the black line is the village's load, and then we can see the different resources stacked underneath there. And then this goes by year. And you can see it goes all the way out to 2036 or something like that. So you guys still do have some room for additional resources. I was kind of running some numbers, and you could fit a couple more megawatts of solar. You could also fit a couple megawatts of solar and a little bit more wind if you really wanted to. Kind of looking. Part of that is resources that make sense for you guys. So like we just did, I know you guys have some solar that you guys have looked at here in Yellow Springs. We just looked at a solar project in eastern Kentucky. We were also looking at a natural gas project out in Virginia as an organization. Last year, we were looking at a waste heat off of a natural gas pipeline. So we're constantly kind of surveying the market and coming to you guys. So I would say that you guys do have a little bit of room for some additional resources, but we want to be careful of what we add, because like I was showing you in April, there were times where you had already enough power. So we want to make sure we're adding that. And for you guys right now, it's a little bit more, you have needs summer and a little bit the winter is where you have those additional needs.
So then, I assume you're the representative who's going to these twice a year meetings?
Correct.
So then when we buy a portion of a power plant, is that a thing that does council engage with that?
No, normally when it comes to the meetings, it's already vetted out, but I'm the voting member, and I believe it was Hostway, but right now I'm the voting member.
So that decision of, you're looking at that chart and it looks like, oh, there's room in that red and white area, and that's what you're saying is that, oh, you could probably buy a few more megawatts of, regular deals. How would that functionally happen? You would identify that?
We would come to you for that.
Okay, yes.
And by you,
correct.
you mean you talk to John
You
and
would kind
say,
of, and then this just happened, a year ago, where Mike and Craig come and presented another project to council. Council approved it. It actually goes online June.
Yeah, so we've got, let's see, we had Locust Ridge. Locust Ridge went off and Brown County started. So we started a new wind contract this year. So we were here talking about that, I think, a little over a year ago. So we cannot do anything with your portfolio without getting council permission. So whenever we build a hydro plant, enter into any contract, we have to get an ordinance from city council or village council to get approval for that. Okay. What Johnny's doing is the maintenance, is more the operational.
but you would have a meeting on an annual basis or something and say, oh, well, it looks like we've got some room, and then you might start communicating about what you might bring to council to say, here, we think there's an opportunity, let's take advantage of it.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand how it works. Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
And to go back to your solar, it would make sense to have local, because it's behind the meter, versus having solar and then paying transmission costs on top of it.
Yeah, so a
That's
lot of
where you're
times, because like you saw with your solar facility, you get that extra credit for behind the meter. It does make more sense to do solar locally if you have the land. That has been the biggest issue with our municipalities is, do they have, I guess there's always land. It's just what kind of price you're having to pay for that land to develop the solar project. And if you can do that locally, a lot of times that makes more sense than doing like the project that we just looked at in eastern Kentucky, where you're not getting the credit. We're not getting the credit of it being behind your meter.
Okay.
And the offset behind the meter is only for solar or also for wind?
It's anything that's produced behind the village's interconnection with the grid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any form?
Any form.
Gotcha.
And in fact, we're going to talk a little bit about, voluntary reductions. Anything that you can do to lower your time at high usage helps to lower
Okay.
your cost. Yeah. All right, to round out the energy section, we'll talk about the energy market. Energy is a commodity, it's bought and sold. It's closely tied to natural gas prices because natural gas are the big power plants that are producing electricity anymore. There's still some coal plants around, but the big amount of power is now produced by natural gas. So when we go to the next slide, we can see the correlation here. So the red line is natural gas prices since 2000. The blue line is power prices. You can see back in the early 2000s, we were short natural gas in the United States. That really sent power prices and natural gas prices higher. We then had the recession. And then we were able to produce more domestically natural gas in the United States at a cheaper cost. And we had about 15 years of almost too much natural gas. Now we are exporting a lot of that natural gas overseas. A lot of that's going to Europe, especially with the Ukraine war. That is putting more scarcity back into the system. And we're now seeing, you can see higher prices than we were. So we had higher prices in the early 2000s, and we had about 15 years of very low prices, and now we're back to a higher price environment.
And so the dotted black line, you're basically saying that at that point in the mid-2000s, the assumption was that the price would just keep going up and up and up?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's what would have happened if we would have not been able to produce natural gas much cheaper today than what we used to.
And that's fracking is a big part of that, right?
Yeah.
I know we don't
That's
say
what
it out loud, but that's what happens, right?
It's frack. Shale natural gas and fracking fundamentally changed the cost of production of natural gas, created a massive excess of natural gas in the United States. And for 10, 15 years, we didn't know what to do with it. Now we're putting it on ships and shipping it overseas to Europe and Asia, but a lot to Europe.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any questions on the energy side before we flip over to transmission and installed capacity? Yeah.
Controlled, not controlled, correct?
The energy, yeah. So the energy side, these are things that are much easier to control. We can make decisions on what kind of power plants and where we're going to buy and how long and the term. This stuff here gets a lot more difficult to control. The first charge we're going to talk about is transmission charges. If you want to go to the next slide. This is the cost of paying for those big transmission lines that run throughout the state. We have to pay for wherever we interconnect to. We interconnect here to Dayton Power and Light, or AES. So we have to pay a cost for building and maintaining their transmission lines. A lot of our transmission lines were built back in the 1960s, 70s. They're getting older. Dayton Power and Light used to own power plants, and they made money with those. They don't do that anymore. They are purely a transmission line company now, meaning they are much more focused on replacing a lot of those old transmission lines. And you can see the impact and the cost there, from where we were a couple of years ago to where we are now. So this is one of the biggest areas of cause of increase in the village's overall rates, is that just the cost of building and maintaining the transmission lines. Now you can see a little dip there. That's actually not because they're going to slow down spending, but they're anticipating a bunch of data centers to come online in the Dayton area that would help to push down transmission costs because they'll help to pay for them. Now, will they be around to pay for them long term? That's a big question mark, but that's what they're at least anticipating at this point. So how do they bill for transmission? That's on the next slide. They bill based on your load during Dayton Power and Light's peak hour of the year. So this is not on your peak, it's on Dayton's peak. And Dayton peaked on July 24th at hour ending 18, so from 5 to 6 o'clock in the evening. The village's tie line during that hour was 8.5 megawatts. So for all of 2026, we have to pay for 8.5 megawatts of transmission. So anything we can do to lower that 1 hour saves us an entire year's worth of transmission bill. So that's where we go back to the solar. When the solar is producing during that hour, it helps to lower our transmission bill. We also send out alerts saying, hey, if you guys are able to lower your usage, maybe turn the thermostat up a little bit, that saves us an entire year's worth of transmission costs. And the reason behind that is that's less transmission lines they have to go out and build because the peak is now lower.
Yeah, and we had this conversation the last time we did one of these, but I think there's still an education gap of what peak shaving means. So like we sent out these notifications like peak shaving, and it wasn't literally until one of these presentations that I understood, oh, that just means if we suck it up right now, it's going to save us money all year. And I think the more that we can explain that to people and then actually add a direct financial impact of like, if we reduce by 10% right now, it will cost this is how much you will save. Anyway, I think there's just some education of what peak shaving means that we have to do so that people are more likely to want to participate.
Okay, so this is related to my previous question. So it is a date that is selected and that we know in advance.
We don't know it in advance.
Okay.
That's the trick. I'll talk about that in a couple of slides, but we don't know. But we can forecast. That's one of the things that we
Okay.
do, and we send out alerts that, hey, we think tomorrow might be a peak day.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so this year we knew that it was going to be a month in advance of the previous years based off.
We did not know.
Okay.
We have to watch the weather forecasts. And we
Okay.
say, okay, it's looking really hot tomorrow. Dew
Okay.
points are really high. I mean, it's going to be real humid.
Okay.
And and we have like 3 different forecast models all to figure this out because it can make a big difference. So when we look at an organization, last year we saved around $150 million. All of our members did by doing this peak shaving. Just like your solar facility and some other different units we'll talk about here in a couple minutes, but collectively, and that's generation, that's people willing to reduce their load. It can make a real impact.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the peak day of the season. It's just the calculation
Their best guess.
algorithm as
So you might
it's-
send peak shaving messages like a few times in a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
That helps.
yeah. So maybe it's 10 different times during the summer. And the hard thing is what happens if we have a medium hot day in June? Well, we might send a message because maybe it's going to be a cool summer and that ends up being the peak. And then all of a sudden in July a really hot day comes, and then we set it, and then okay, now we have a new bogey that.
Okay, got it.
So just because I don't know where it'll come up, I'm just going to going back to the energy piece. So we don't have, for example, in our goals anything about this, right? Anything about energy. I know we've talked a little bit about solar. This ties directly into our affordability goals, for example, where if we can produce more electricity at a lower rate and then therefore save people money on their bills and do a better job with peak save, so it's all like where is the most benefit? So I'm just kind of flagging that, so for example, when we've had CBE property that sat there vacant for 30 years, is there a point at which you go, oh man, we could put some solar there behind the grid and it could have an impact on our residents' costs? So I don't mean to pick on or whatever the CBE, but it would be the same for any of our other property or,
We've had these conversations in the past, in the last couple years, 2021, 22, about putting solar in different places at the village-owned property for this reason.
Yeah.
Because it could make a really significant difference.
So just naming that, we might want to think about, and I think if you're seeing a place where, hey, there's a really, because there was, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, the solar prices were so low, where there was a moment where you're like, oh my God, we really ought to be building solar right now. because it was such an opportunity. It doesn't seem like there's as much of a savings now. 'cause
So we go back
changes.
several years ago, there was some good tax credits out there.
Yeah.
And then you combine that where kind of coming out of the around the pandemic time, there was just a lot of inflation. So you've got wages going up. There were tariffs on the panels coming out of China. So all of a sudden, the tariffs on those panels, that causes solar prices to go up. Transformers, inverters, all of the equipment was just going up in cost. So it does cost more now than what it did, 5 years ago to put in solar. But then also transmission costs are up, capacity costs are up. And I'll go back to, you were asking about what can we put behind our meter. You can put anything that generates can help with transmission and capacity. Solar is really great to help with peak shaving because on that really hot day, the wind might not be blowing, but it's probably sunny. Yeah.
Okay.
You could do hydro on Yellow Springs Creek. Anyway, it's a joke.
We do have some members that have some small hydro, but, okay. If you go to the next slide. So this is transmission costs, how much transmission is impacting your overall rate. You can see several years ago, the price was all the way down at 0. Now it's up to about a half a cent a kilowatt hour. You guys do have some resources that help. So the solar facility, as well as another project I'll talk about in a little bit called JV2, that helps to lower your transmission cost. If you didn't have those resources, we'd be close to paying about 1 cent a kilowatt hour in transmission costs. All right. Distribution charges, because you guys do not have your own substation, you have to pay for part of Dayton Power and Light's substation that you guys use. That equates to about $130,000 a year, $3 a megawatt hour. So that's about 0.4 cents a kilowatt hour to your overall cost. So.
And we've talked about, this is one of the capital things that has been just to connect the dots that we've talked about. And I assume you're doing a math problem that says, hey, if we build a substation, there's a bunch of capital costs up front, but then there's benefits long term. Is that the
Correct. Absolutely.
overly simplistic
It's part of
version?
the
Okay.
capacity study.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So the next charge we're going to talk about is capacity or the reliability charge. Before we do, we need to talk about the grid as a whole. So back in the day, Dayton Power and Light operated as an island. They had their power plants, they had their load, and they didn't care about what was going down in Synergy, now Duke. They didn't care about AEP, First Energy. They just cared about Dayton Power and Light. Back in the late 90s, they said, hey, if we operate the grid as one big group, we might be able to do that more efficiently. And so they formed this big group. It's called PJM. Stands for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. Those were the 3 founding states. But you can see now, all of these different colored utilities, all are different members of PJM. It goes from New Jersey all the way down to North Carolina, even includes Chicago. So PJM is, they are the big kind of watchdog. You can almost think of them as a policeman or a market maker. They tell everybody what to do, and they do that through markets, but they don't own anything. So an example of that is they set the price of power. When they see load going up because people are turning on their air conditioning, they raise the price of power, which then incentivizes more power plants to turn on. When they see the load going down, they raise the price of power to incentivize power plants to turn off. So that's an example of how they balance the grid through a market. They don't own anything. They're just telling everybody what to do. Now, as part of this, they're also responsible for making sure the lights stay on, not just now, but 3 years from now. And that's where we get into the installed capacity markets here. So what is installed capacity? If you think about that really hot day, almost like today, where it was really hot out and you hear all those air conditioners running, how do you know you're going to have enough power plants? Well, when you get to that hot day, you could start counting how many power plants do I have, and if I come up short, now we've got a problem. The grid has to stay balanced. We're going to have to shed load. And that's not something you want in the electric industry. You want that reliability on that hot day, the power to stay on. So what they do is they count their power plants 3 years in advance. How do they do that? Through a market. So they have all the power plants say, hey, who's willing to be around 3 years from now to make sure that on a peak day we have enough power plants. Power plants get paid. As a load in PJM, we have to pay. And we get some credits because if we own power plants or have power purchase agreements, that helps to, we're selling into the market at the same time we have to buy it back. Now, when we look at this chart here of prices, I'll show the impact to the village's rates here in a second, but you can see slightly higher prices back in the teens. That's as we were retiring a lot of coal plants. That was raising prices a little bit. Then we built a bunch of natural gas plants and some renewable power. That helped to push prices down. Then all of a sudden we had several things happen. We were still retiring coal plants. It got more expensive and more difficult to build renewables, especially through their permitting process that PJM has. And then we add, it was hard to build natural gas plants because of pipeline issues. And then the data centers came and really pushed up load. So now we need more power plants. And that really pushed up the price. And you can see they actually have capped it for the next couple of years. There's a lot of fighting about the rules. There's a lot of trying to figure out what to do with all of these data centers because we need more power plants to serve these data center loads. So on the next slide, we have the rate impact to the village. Now the red bar is what you're paying. So that overall, when we look at it, rates, it used to be about, almost flat. You guys weren't hardly paying anything for capacity. Now that's up to about 1 cent a kilowatt hour, 0.9 cents a kilowatt hour this year. Now, that is a much lower rate than if you were to be buying from the market because you guys get credit for the landfill, the hydro, the wind, the solar. That's all helping you. If you did not have those resources, capacity would be adding close to 2 to 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour to your overall rate instead of adding 0.5 cent to 1 cent a kilowatt hour. So all of those resources that we've been doing have helped to protect us from that cost. So how do they bill for capacity? It's similar to how they bill for transmission, but instead on Dayton Power and Light's peak, it's on all of PJM. So all of that load, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all of that big area. When they have their 5 highest days of the year, so Dayton Power and Light transmission peak is on the highest day, this is on the 5 highest days of the year. Now those are all in the summertime as well, and a lot of times they're the same days that Dayton Power and Light is peaking, because if it's hot here in Dayton, it's also hot in all of Ohio and a lot of times hot across the whole East Coast. They take your load during those 5 peak days, they average them together, and that's how much capacity you're responsible for. So going up through the end of May here, you're responsible for 7.298 megawatts of capacity. When we get to June, that changes to 7.921 of capacity. So the way to avoid transmission cost is to lower your load. You can buy peak shaving or behind the meter resources. Capacity, you can have peak shaving or behind the meter resources, but you can also have power plants, like all of the big power plants that we were talking about earlier help to offset your capacity costs. Okay, so the next slide is on peak shaving. When we look here at peak shaving, like we were talking about earlier, we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. We have like a color coding system of yellow is warning, orange is like it's possible. If you're very flexible, you should do something. Red and black are the hours that we recommend people taking action. There's some real savings here. So for 100 kilowatts, you're looking at $15,000 a year. To kind of boil that down, a 100-watt light bulb. If you had a 100-watt light bulb on during those 6 hours, the 1 hour for the transmission peak and the 5 hours for the capacity peak, that costs you $15 a year. Now, hopefully nobody in the village has a 100-watt light bulb anymore. Hopefully more efficient light bulbs, but still it kind of gives I always grew up thinking about 100-watt light bulbs. So that's where, anything we can do to control our costs during those 6 hours, not that we know exactly. The other thing is EVs. That's something, making sure, not just air conditioners aren't running during those times, but EVs. You look at a 6 kilowatt EV charger, that's $900 a year in capacity and transmission costs if an EV is charging across those peaks as well. So that can be a financial cost. Questions on peak shaving? We were talking a little bit about that earlier.
Well, I'll just say that it's like getting more helpful and understanding it with the like light bulb and the EV charger. I'm still like trying to kind of do the math in my head of like, what's the impact on the average consumer, essentially. So just noting that, like, for next year's presentation or something, if there any of this that's able to be, because I assume I'm not the only one who doesn't think in megawatts or kilowatts or, you know, so when anything that can be translated
Yeah.
to a consumer's average use would be, or the benefit or cost. Because like I'm seeing that and I'm going, okay, so now we're all paying a bunch more for the EV people who leave their things plugged in those hours. Is there some way that we can, anyway, you get the point. I'm just trying to understand what it actually means for every consumer.
Yeah, so when you look, probably the average consumer capacity's adding probably around, depends if we look with or without our hedges, but let's just say with our hedges, adding about $10 a month to their overall bill. Transmission's probably about the $5 to $10 a month as well range. If we did not have all of the hedges we had in place, that would be closer to $30 a month. That it was probably the average resident is paying for transmission and capacity, to put some ballparks there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying if we do all the hedges and then we do a good job with peak shaving, we could maybe save something like $10 a month off the average bill? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but the hard part is how would you get your village's load all the way down to zero? You're probably not going to do that with just peak shaving. You're probably going to need more generation to do that. And that's so possibly more solar. We're still evaluating batteries. Batteries are getting closer to being able to help with that as well. Now, one of the things that we're seeing is that we need a battery that lasts longer because as more people are peak shaving, the peak is getting flatter. So right now we're recommending more like 4-hour batteries if people are looking at that. The costs are getting closer as capacity and transmission costs continue to go up. It's getting more, we're starting to get closer to the cost that batteries would make sense to start putting in. I think that's something that we will continue to see. But when you start doing that, you start talking about layering in solar and battery and some peak shaving. Now you are getting close to, we could start seeing that kind of impact.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 4 minutes.
Okay. How many more slides?
We're on the home stretch here. I can get us there. The next project is a JV2. This is a unit, these are 34 diesel units, 3 gas turbines that were put in back in 2001. The debt service is paid off. We use these, they sit behind the meter. There's none located here in Yellow Springs, but they are located amongst other municipalities. You guys are part owners of this project. They only operate during the capacity and transmission peak hours. So we're only running these about 40 hours a year to help offset capacity and transmission costs, lowering that strain on the grid so other power plants and transmission lines don't get built. Right now, the overall, right now, you guys are seeing about $140,000 a year in revenue from these units. And we're just, at some point, though, they are getting closer to the end of their life. So. Okay, we will talk about rates. The blue line is so far rates this year. The red line is what we forecasted. Even with the really cold winter storm that we had, so far this year, rates have been coming in close to forecast. But I'll go to the next slide, which is the longer term rates. And this breaks it out by different types of charges. So the blue, that's your energy cost. The white is transmission. The black is the cost of the substation. And then the kind of that top gray there, that's capacity costs. So that's where we were talking about. You guys are already, between the things that you're doing, have lowered some of those top boxes smaller. They would be much bigger if you didn't do everything that you were doing. But you can see that's also the biggest area of impact to your overall rate, is those transmission and capacity costs. Our energy costs have been fairly steady. So looking at overall rates, so that is our cost that we're billing to you guys, your wholesale power cost. But the question is, how does that impact the actual residents, right? So this is looking at Yellow Springs. overall retail rate for residential customers, and including all of the customer charge and the base rate and everything. Right now, we're showing you guys at about 16.6 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, the next slide shows what that is for AES. Now, AES has two components to their rate. There's a base rate that everybody pays. That's 10 cents a kilowatt hour. That's for their transmission and everything and their distribution cost. Then they have a separate energy rate where they're going out onto the market and holding auctions to procure the power. And that's at about 8 to 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So to get their overall rate, you have to add their base rate and their generation rate together. And right now, and starting in June, that should be 19.3 cents a kilowatt hour. So all of the different investor-owned utilities do it the same way. And the next slide is my last slide. And that is just showing Yellow Springs retail rate compared to Toledo Edison, Duke, Dayton, and AEP. Toledo Edison is also First Energy. So these are all the different major investor-owned utilities in the state. So I think this is something that you guys should be proud of. You guys have assembled a portfolio that is almost all sustainable power, and yet your rates are still below all of the investor-owned utilities in the state. As well as, you guys have all the reliable service and all of the local control as well. So.
All right, any last questions? All right, well, thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll take like a 3-minute bathroom break and then get started here in just a minute. For folks that are just getting here, this is the end of work session, about to start the main meeting here in a minute. welcome back to the Village Council Monday, May 18th meeting for the Village of Yellow Springs. We just did a work session, and now we're going to do a regular meeting. And so, Judy, if you can do the roll call.
Yes, DeVore Leonard.
Here?
Shu.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Samari.
Hello.
Pierce.
Here.
Also present, Assistant Village Manager Elise Jardullo, Village Manager Johnny Burns, and Solicitor Amy Blankenship is tuning in by Zoom.
Great. Okay, first up, we're going to do some swearings in. So Katya Svensson, John Search, Alan Rainey, that are going to be full Environmental Commission members, and then Brian Mayer, Noel Welsh are going to be, and actually, it's not Environmental Commission, it's PAC, right?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, the paper I have here says Environmental Commission. PAC, Public Arts and Culture Commission, and then Brian Mayer and Noel Welsh as alternate members. We're going to do them all in one big chunk. So everybody come on up.
Do-do-do-do.
They're awful.
We'll just do it like in this little area here. So, okay. Here's your, and I'm not giving them to you, they're all going to read the same. So this is just, sorry, I'm not handing them out. I know you're Alan. You're, anyway, you can trade each other's, but the words are the same. Got one? Thank you. Okay. Oh, and I need, thank you. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to read a little section, and you'll just repeat the next section, that section back, and then we'll make our way through it, okay? So I solemnly swear or affirm.
I solemnly swear or affirm
That I will support the Constitution.
that I will support the Constitution
And will obey the laws of the United States.
and will obey the laws of the United States
And of the state of Ohio.
and of the state of Ohio.
That I will in all respects observe the provisions of.
That I will in all respects observe the provisions of
The charter and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs.
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs.
And will faithfully discharge the duties.
And will faithfully discharge our duties.
Okay, now this is where you're going to sound a little dissonant, okay? And the duties of the office of Public Arts and Culture Commission, and are they both saying, they're all saying that, whether they're alt or not? Okay, then you can say the same thing. Will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Public Arts and Culture Commission.
Faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Public Arts and Culture Commission.
Get it.
Okay, congratulations, yay. And here are your formal pins. Thank you for your role and your help. There you go, okay. Wow, great job.
Johnny Dread, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny Dread, ladies and gentlemen.
He's going for your seat. You gotta watch out.
All right.
Group fun. And you do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, you're welcome to hang out if you want, but you do not need to stay. Cool. All right. So the next thing is announcements. Are there any announcements?
Oh, goodness.
I just, if you don't mind, I would just like to note that passing of Jerry Sims, who is a two-term council member who was an unforgettable member of council, really, really service-oriented, just a wonderful person to work with. His service was this last weekend, and he will be missed.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Judy. Okay, next up is the consent agenda, where we can get a motion to approve both things if anyone so chooses.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Then the next up is the review of the agenda, where we will take a look at the agenda, and if anybody has any questions or suggestions, you can make them here. Anything on review of agenda? All right. Next up is petitions and communications. Angie, if you don't mind.
Mitzi Miller regarding downtown parking. Mitzi Miller regarding downtown handicap parking availability. Philip O'Rourke regarding invitation/best hometowns. Mayor's clerk regarding mayor's monthly report.
Great, thank you. All right, and then next up is citizen concerns. I'm going to get out my trusty document. This is also on the table out there. So the protocol for citizen concerns. Citizen concerns are set aside as a place for citizen comment on anything you wish to share for council consideration. If your comments are regarding a second read ordinance, they should be made during the public hearing for that ordinance. Public hearings are clearly noted on the agenda. Persons wishing to address council at any time during the meeting, including citizen concerns, should provide first and last name and association with the village, like resident or business owner, etc. Please try not to repeat previous comments. If something has already been shared, you can note agreement. In the interest of time, you'll be asked to move on if a topic has already been covered at length. Council wants to provide a thoughtful and responsive answer to your questions, which can be difficult in the context of a meeting, so you are unlikely to receive a response during the meeting. And then at the conclusion of citizen concerns, if there are clear, concise responses or information to provide immediately, we will do so, and then we will identify any follow-up needed for concerns or questions that can be addressed. So that's citizen concerns framing, and now, anybody have any citizen concerns?
I'd like to add something, a technical bit to the citizens' concerns, especially regarding handling the microphone. It's a cardioid pattern, so that means it comes out and back in, which you're close enough, even if you're standing at the window, to be picked up in the monitors that are in the ceiling. And Ben, if you touch the microphone, it gives him quite a displeasurable noise in his ear. So just be mindful, and it's not necessary to touch the mic because this is state of the art around here, baby.
Okay, I'm adding number 5. Please don't touch the mic, and I'll get with you on the cardioid and things. Okay. All right, yeah, go for it.
Can I give you guys a little handout?
Sure.
Okay. Just, it's nice to have pictures.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
all right.
I remember this.
My name's Steve Green. I'm a resident, and I'm asking the village council, I'm asking you guys to make a determination about some walnut trees that are on the glass farm, to determine whether they are a harm. And so the history of this is, I live right next to the glass farm. That's my house right there, right at the south part of it. And all of these things these are the walnut trees that have grown up there right across the fence from my yard. And when we first moved in, it was just a field, and now it's the glass farm with the easement on it, the conservation easement. And these were the trees that weren't planted. They're young trees. They're not, they're not a rare species. They're not endangered or anything. This is just where the squirrels buried the walnuts. And the walnut trees, the black walnut trees, produce this substance called juglone. I guess it's called juglone, and it's harmful to plants, some plants. And the furthest walnut tree in the picture is only 30 feet from the fence. There's walnut trees that are closer than that. So the juglone will kill like a lot of plants, especially the things that we grow right near there, tomatoes and daylilies. So I'd like you guys to designate that these things are a harm. And so the context of this is, I'll get a little bit further. So first, the 100 feet from the nearest tree is basically our whole backyard. And so isn't this a Tecumseh Land Trust issue? Well, I went to the Tecumseh Land Trust, and they said, no, you can't cut down any native species. So then we found that you guys, there is the easement actually has a line in it, that's the piece here, that says that the village reserves the right to harvest trees, to selectively harvest trees to prevent harm or damage to the public. So I went back to the Tecumseh Land Trust about this, and they had somebody there say that they actually didn't say that the trees weren't a harm. What they said was that the trees were not a threat to the public. That was their determination. So I was hoping that the Tecumseh Land Trust would just agree to let me cut down the trees, and they haven't done that. So that's why I'm coming to you guys, because I would like you to enforce this thing, to make the designation that these trees are a harm. So you guys have reserved this right in there. The right is in the easement reserved for the Village of Yellow Springs. Ultimately, it's a council question. If you guys want to read the thing, this is the document that is the environmental easement, and that's the point where it designates that that you can cut down if you want to look at it. That's registered with the Greene County. And so, am I out of time?
It's okay, you can finish up.
Let me just finish up real quick. So, these things are going to, so the designation is because it is going to cause harm or damage to the public, and the answer is that the trees will cause harm to our garden, and once the soil is damaged, the way you get rid of it, there's no antidote for the poison. You just got to dig out the dirt. So if we're saying, well, we're not sure it's going to cause harm, well, by the time it does cause harm, it's too late. And I also. All right, I think this is enough, but I just want to point out, it's kind of a low-risk thing. You aren't going to have anybody protesting about these trees. They're just young trees and nobody cares about them. We're willing to pay to have them cut down and removed, so we're not going to be spending any village money on this, and we're also willing to donate some money to the Tecumseh Land Trust for them to replace the trees with something that's more appropriate for right there. And so I'd like your consideration. I don't know what the next step is on this, whether you have to have a resolution or a hearing or whatever, but anyhow, that's my request, is that you say that those trees that are near my house are harmed, and then that would let me have them removed. Thank
And
you.
grow some tomatoes maybe eventually, right?
I would like that. But there's always the farmer's market.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want your document back?
I don't know if anybody, you can have it and read it if you want. I think it's just a printed the PDF. It's
Okay.
not the original. So,
Thank you, sir.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other citizen concerns? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. Can I bring this down a little
I
bit?
think what she was saying is
Yeah, we
it
can-
works
we can
just
hear
like it
you.
is.
We can hear you. Yeah,
Okay, can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, I can't. Yeah, good evening. My name is Jacinta Williams. I go by Jay. I live at 248 Whitehall Drive, born here in 1951. I recently returned from Cincinnati to live with my sister on Whitehall Drive. I've been here for 3 years now. One of the things that I wanted to bring up was a project that I brought up to the Chamber of Commerce, who referred me to the senior center about a potentially shuttle service for our village pertaining to our elderly and senior center, senior citizens in the high season, especially in the summertime. I've worked extensively with international events, including parking, shuttling people around, and so I've got a lot of experience with things like this. One of the things I wanted to bring up is not necessarily for this year, it would take some planning, but I like to putter around town and kind of take in where most of our elderly people live, and we always have a lot of trouble getting downtown for the festivals and 4th of July and Pride and all of that. We always talk about parking. If we had a kind of internal shuttle service, maybe being able to hire a small fleet of school buses or something, put a banner on the outside, Yellow Springs shuttle service. We could buy a pass. Cincinnati does this. The seniors get a pass, and there's a special kind of bus that goes around and picks up seniors. And now in Cincy, it looks like a driver's license. It has your picture on it and everything. I don't think we need to go to anything like that. But to show that you actually live there and have certain stops around town to pick people up and take them downtown. And I was thinking about in front of Mills Lawn School where that new sidewalk is that goes into the school, that could be a drop-off center, and have these shuttles just run a certain course around town, including Friends Care, and somebody earlier today suggested the new senior center that's going to be opening up behind the Bryan Center, make certain stops like, let's say at one stop, it show up every 2 hours or so. And that way, you could get on this shuttle, you buy a pass, and the pass would pay for either the rental of the shuttles, or maybe if the village decided to buy them, it would go towards buying or renting the shuttles. And it would be a nice pilot project to see if it would work out, but I hear a lot of suggestion about having an internal shuttle service during the peak part of the year when we're having some trouble getting downtown because they want us to participate in our village, but, especially if you're elderly and you don't have a car. Now, I've got a car, but I've used my walker to go down there, and when it's really hot, it's really rough. So maybe start getting some irons in the fire now and start to map out a plan for a shuttle service starting next year and see how that would potentially work. I don't think we have anything to lose, and I think we have a lot to gain by making our major events more available to handicapped and seniors that just can't get downtown. So that's what I would like to propose. I'd like to get on that starting for next year.
So really quickly, I'm going to address, I think, the senior center has a pretty robust transportation plan, and they have a new, is that a 12-passenger van, Johnny? 15-passenger van. Well, can you email me after this meeting and just put that bug in my ear, because this is something that seems like it can happen.
Yeah, I think so, but
Okay.
see, I've brought it up to senior center, and they say, oh, we've got something, but I've never
Okay.
seen it.
All right, yeah, they have a transportation program and a 15-passenger van, so we'll talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Are there
Jay.
any other citizen concerns?
Hello, my name's Mitzi Miller. I'm a resident of, 40 years now in Yellow Springs. I will ask for a little additional time. As you move forward on discussing who's responsible for sidewalk replacement and repairs, I'm a supporter of safe sidewalks and started the Yellow Springs Action Project for sidewalks many years ago with the support of the village. Let's look at these factors and make sure we have all the resources in place, understand the financial expenses the village will occur, and understand the financial impact of our property owners. Let's look at these issues: surveying expenses and marking sidewalks. Who's going to be responsible? Private contractors or the village employees? Well, we need additional staff for oversight, compliance, mailing letters out to property owners, follow-ups, and billing Greene County Treasurer if we do the work and it's not paid for by property owners. Well, we need modifications that current sidewalk ordinances and or need to add new guidelines with our ordinances on sidewalks. Developing assistance programs or resources for lower-income people. The fairness of some people not having to pay since they don't have a sidewalk, but we all use sidewalks. Our current economy raising prices for materials, glass, living, utilities, and taxes should certainly be considered. Considering putting it on our ballot for property owners to decide is maybe an option. How this will impact our village budget and current deficits need to be considered. Contracting with concrete companies for better rates for the village and property owners is also something we need to look at. So unless the village has a plan of action to present to our community and property owners that supports our budget and the expenses you will incur, as well as supports property owners by making it more affordable, it would probably be put off until 2027, like other infrastructure, school, street, and signage, parking, and our community safety and accessibility. You can see a pattern here. You need to be reevaluating the village's priorities and how you spend our money. Safety should be at the top of our list, and maintaining and improving our infrastructure needs to be one of the first considerations. We are recognized as an age-friendly community, yet we place safety and accessibility as a low priority. Our Village Bryan Center's parking lot has been an example of putting staff's needs over community members with mobility issues, disabilities, seniors, individuals who use assisted devices. While last week we had our village parking lot blacktopped, and I commend Johnny for adding an accessible parking spot, there are other issues with this parking lot that we need to address. And I've shared with you that information already in a survey. It's not me just saying this. We've got a gymnasium that's used by 25 seniors a week, and many of them have mobility issues. I hope you will continue to see more improvements in accessible parking added to our village parking lot and in the business areas. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Any other citizen concerns? Okay, so just as a follow-up, I know Stephen left, but is it a resolution? Like, if we wanted to do this thing, does council need to do, like, what has to happen, do you know?
I don't think you need a resolution, but Amy, can you speak to that?
It's already in the, isn't it already in the deed?
It is.
Okay.
I make note to Judy that we talk about it at agenda planning
Okay.
with Amy.
Okay. Okay, I think that was my one little question or clarification. All right, we will keep on moving here. So the next thing up is public hearings and legislation. If I could get a motion to read in emergency legislation by title only, please.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so Judy, if you don't mind reading in the emergency reading of ordinance 2026-08 by title only, please.
All right, this is establishing a moratorium on the issuance of zoning permits and approvals for new data center uses in the village of Yellow Springs and declaring an emergency.
Great, can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Great. All right, so, and we typically do public hearings, so just as a note, when we do emergency, or we have to do public hearings on emergencies, right? That's the,
You don't
don't
actually have to.
okay, but we typically do, so we'll do that in just a second. So we'll start, I guess, we talked about this at the last meeting, so I assume it's just what's in the packet, and are there any additional comments or questions? Has everybody communicated that this feels like we found the balance that we were talking about?
Yeah, the balance for me is I wanted to make sure that the number was low enough to be able to have a small data center like Maveka and others. So we took it from 25 megawatts to 2. So that was the good balance for me. And we could handle that, but it would put us at the max of what we can do. So that was the only thing that I had, was making sure that it was the megawatts was in there.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then all those in favor, public hearing, I just said. We'll now open the public hearing if anybody has any comments on the data center ordinance. All right, now closing the public hearing. So now, this one is the one that the emergencies are 4 out of 5, right?
Yep, supermajority, yes.
Okay, so just as a general rule, all emergencies need a supermajority. So Judy, and then we do those by roll call. Go for it, Judy.
We do. Brown.
Yes.
Shu.
Yes.
Samari.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
DeBoer Leonard.
Yes. All right, next up is reading of Resolution 2026-21 by title only, please, Judy.
This is authorizing the village manager to apply for a grant from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for improvements to the village softball field.
Okay, great. Could I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
All right, I assume this is Elise, go for it.
Good evening, Elise Jardillo, Assistant Village Manager. So this one's pretty straightforward. Staff is requesting authorization to apply for a Ohio Department of Natural Resources Nature Works grant to improve the softball field at Gaunt Park. Ben, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the map. Thank you. So we are talking about that upper field there, the one closer to West South College Street. So this project focuses on correcting long-standing drainage and safety issues at the Davenport Memorial Softball Field. That includes reconstructing the infield, installing proper subsurface drainage, improving grading, and bringing the field up to modern safety and play standards. I do want to quickly go over Exhibit C, which was some photos that were also in the packet. Yes, so those show current conditions of the field, including standing water and surface failures. So these photos were taken after about 3/4 of an inch of rain. A properly engineered field should be able to absorb and drain that within a few hours, but as you can see, ours cannot. So this is not a maintenance issue, it's an underlying engineering problem with the field itself. This field serves a wide range of users, youth leagues, high school athletes, and our adult summer league. But its current condition limits playability, creates safety concerns, and leads to frequent game cancellations as well. I also want to emphasize that improving this field is directly tied to expanding opportunities for female athletes in our community. So right now there are very limited softball-specific opportunities, and field access is a major barrier. So if we can't provide a reliable place to play, we can't grow those female programs. So this grant would cover 75% of our project costs for a total of $30,000. Our required match is 25% or $7,500, which we would pull from the Parks and Recreation Fund. But staff will continue to pursue partnerships and donations to offset that local share. It's a strong opportunity to address some clear infrastructure issues, improve safety, and expand access to recreation. We recommend approval of the resolution to allow us to move forward with the application, which is due July 1st. So happy to answer any questions. And Johnny will assist me because he
I
knows
think
more.
the other thing that we could do is if we wanted to add some more money to the grant for mobility ways from the parking lot to the drinking fountain to the restroom, we could actually go up to $50,000 to do some more concrete, some more signage, and then the match would be 12.5. And it also scored better on the grant.
So it's called Path to Project.
There you go.
Path to Project ensures that people who have mobility issues or people who use assistive devices, wheelchairs, walkers can get to the project. The other thing that increases the probability of securing the grant, because it is highly competitive.
Correct.
It's 25 additional points if you add those accessibility components and also adaptive playing equipment. And there's a project in Greene, Ohio. It's an adaptive sports field that this grant, they got the grant, and they actually installed synthetic turf and adaptive equipment and adaptive dugouts, and made the park completely accessible. So think about adding those components. It'll really increase our chances of, I think it'll increase our chances in a competitive, with a competitive grant.
Any other questions or comments? So if I think I'm hearing you agreeing with what Carmen said. So if the number went up, is that still essentially covered in what's in our capital budget, in our budget already for parks and?
So for this particular grant, the budget would not even be necessary until 2027. This fund is not even available until July. The applications are due this July, or June 1. And so this would not even be awarded until next July. So we would just have to put it in the budget for the chance that if we got the grant. But again, we as staff have been talking with some other community partners that would help offset the cost of the match fund. I say that we want to just be able to say, if we don't get no match funds, the village will cover it. This is a one-time match thing, and then we're also putting in there that the village would have in-kind services, because then we would be maintaining it. So It'll actually help with the application.
Okay, but like the idea of having $7,500 to $12,500 of, like, if I looked back at the last few years' budget, we probably haven't spent all of the money in, so it's like, I guess I'm just saying, it's like, it's within the range of what we spend anyway.
Correct, absolutely.
I don't know where the line is that we cross, but we've talked about this in general, probably not a good practice to say, oh, well, we'll figure that out next year. If you do that enough times, it adds up, but this is sort of falls within the range already, is what I'm trying to get at, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, guess I'm assuming that there's support, so I'm gonna do, all those in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Next up is, oh, and I guess, do we need to be clear? Like, just go back to that. This, I know that the resolution, or the original memo was just about the 30. Do we need to do something, or was that enough clarity of, I was just assuming that that was support for the larger amount. Do we need to do anything about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that just to have your Ts crossed and all that sort of thing, that you just make, and you amend the resolution to say, applying for a $50,000 grant, match of $12,500.
Okay.
We acknowledge
So I'm going to
the
make a
law.
motion to do that.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, now we'll vote on the full thing.
On the amended.
So now voting on the amended version, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, great. Good now? Okay. The next one up is Resolution 2026-22. Judy, if you could read that by title only, please.
This is authorizing a grant to Home Inc. for the home repair program as appropriated in the 2027 village budget.
No, it is 2026, right? It was,
No, I'm
we did
sorry.
it in 25. You were
I'm
right
sorry, my
before you were
brain
wrong.
was
Yeah.
already,
No, you're
You
good.
already skipped a year.
it's been a bad year.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
All right. Is anybody on this one?
Amy, are you?
I'm happy to take it, Johnny, if you like.
Yes, absolutely.
What's going on? We hear you, Matt.
Yes.
There we go.
I apologize to not be there in person. I am battling some bronchitis and it's kind of wearing me down. So I had communicated with Gavin and Johnny about doing this by Zoom tonight. So thank you very much for the accommodation. All right, this resolution is based on the budget sessions from last fall. Council approved a $20,000 amount for the 2026 budget for Yellow Springs Home Inc. for home improvements, property owner home improvements. So Home Inc. is now to the point where they've been in communication with the village about acquiring these funds. And when we went back and revisited our minutes from those budget sessions, there wasn't enough meat on the bone, I think, from those meeting minutes for us to really fully pull together how this would look. So that's what this resolution is intended to do, to make clear specifically two things: that the funds will be released in response to submitted invoices, work that's been done, paid for, and the money can be reimbursed to Home Inc. And also that it needs to be for properties in the village and homeowners in the village. Johnny, did I miss anything?
Nope, you got it.
All right, thanks, Amy. Are there any questions?
How much more meat did we have to put on the bones?
Well, there wasn't much in the minutes. It was maybe a line or two. So this is all of the meat, actually. All that really was reflected in the minutes was that council was in favor of the $20,000 for this program.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor, we already did the motion, right? It did.
You did.
Okay, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that concludes our public hearings and legislation. Next up is special reports, of which we have none. So now we're on to manager's report. I just want to note for the record that we are a little ahead.
You are.
Okay?
And I'm going to keep us ahead.
We have like a small side bet going about our timeliness here.
Okay. All right, let's keep it in. Bye.
All right.
Go, Johnny.
So first thing I want
Go, Johnny.
to say thank you to council. The work session was amazing. I think that is the reason why we need to have work sessions like that. A lot of great information Craig provided, so I just wanted to say, hey, thank you for allowing us to have work sessions for this reason. I also want to say thank you to Patricia Peters for that fantastic photo. And again, thank you to staff, because 10 years ago, that would be brown and we'd be adding chemicals. This is no chemicals. This is straight out of the hydrant. Award-winning, straight out of the hydrant. Just for Stephanie's. So there.
Special award.
You are looking at the pool rates and the sales. The pool will open May 23rd. I guarantee it's going to rain. It always has since I've been here. So there will be some kind of rain, but the pool will be open. I want to show you our new planning and zoning director. Naya will be starting May 26th, coming from Riverside. She's coming with about 10 years of experience. I think she is going to just walk in and you will think she's always been here. So she was excited to be able to come and jump on the team, and she's ready to start rolling with the projects. And at the same time, I want to go back. This one's also near and dear to my heart. Brad left us after 19 years, but he started as summer help. Welcome Kevin, that started as a summer temporary help in the streets department, went to the wastewater and water treatment facility, and has now turned into the next superintendent of water and wastewater. Doing an amazing job. Kevin has got the license to be able to continue and keep on going, and the transition has been phenomenal. We're actually still got the application for the water and wastewater operator that will then complete Kevin's team for the Wednesday through the Sunday shift. So I thank Kevin for stepping up. We did some interviews, but by far Kevin was the one for the job. So while I was out in Texas, Ben called me and said, "Did you submit us for an award?" I said, "No." We actually got an award from the state of Ohio from the Senate for reliability and for safety for the electric department. It's in my office. This is a picture of it. They recognized the team for having an outstanding safety award and being in the very high top of the reliability for the power. So thanks to the Ohio Senate for issuing this award to the Village of Yellow Springs Electric Department. Calls for service was 1,548. It's amazing how many calls we get for such a small team. They did a fantastic job. The new recruit started school on April 27th. He was a local that worked at the Mills Park Hotel and wanted to join the team. So he has started training, and we look forward to getting him done with the training and on the force. There's a section highlighted. I think I did it last time, but I'm going to actually say it again. Public Works did a phenomenal job, but they ain't the first ones to get all the calls. They start at the PD. PD has officers on duty. They're the first ones driving around looking at storm problems. They're telling the people where the emergencies are. So I wanted to say again, a big thanks to the PD dispatch and the officers for taking the initial calls and helping the team sit out barricades and close and put cones out there where if residents are out driving around, they're not driving into some potential problems. So again, thank you to the YS dispatch and the officers that help us on a daily basis, truly. Police Department, total people served by the COSs so far in March was 328 people. For the year, it is 1,200 291. And that is by two outstanding COS position leaders in the police department. Planning and zoning, again, the biggest thing to report is Naya will be sitting in the seat May 26th, the day after the holiday. Our window will be closed for Memorial Day on May 25th. So the trash will also, and recycling will be delayed one day versus your normal pickup day. Our water loss, if you guys are keeping track of that, looked like we was off the charts. That is because we drained the water tower for the warranty. So we had 1 million gallons that just went down the storm system. So we'll get our water loss back under production, but I wanted to let you know that. We are in the process of talking about the PFAS. We have another meeting tomorrow, working with the EPA and the grant on how to control and how to do some PFAS. That's been a project that has taken a lot of time from the staff that wasn't supposed to take a lot of time with the staff, but they're actually in the process of trying to wrap it up, and they're actually reaching out, in case you hear a rumor, they're reaching out to other communities to see if we want to go to Xenia and go to Fairborn. I was like, hey, we're not going anywhere. We just need, but as part of the process, they have to dot their I's and they have to cross their T's. So Fairborn already sent a response in that says it's not necessary, it's not needed. So Springfield and Xenia is the next on the list for them as well. Let's see here, the electric department, they set a new switch out there for the new 2500 kVA transformer at the Cresco for their addition. But one thing I want to highlight is by adding a new staff member for the line department, the revenue for us digging in the new electric to the Springs Meadow facilities, you'll see that in the picture on the third one on the right-hand side. We are actually doing it, we're actually piping it in, and then we just build Fisher. So that's a revenue generating. We're already out there. They ain't got to call a contractor. We know it's been installed correctly. That's a revenue source, and we're taking care of that as well. But the biggest thing to highlight on here is they are underway for the switch station for the center circuit, and that is the finished poured concrete pad that they did. No contractors. They did all the forming, they did all the pouring. So that is in lifetime, they are getting it done. So that extra person just helps that much. And the I believe just that pad alone by the contractor pricing was going to be almost $42,000. And we are actually keeping track of time, material, and all that, and we have a little less than $5,200 in it today. So that is actually helping us in the long run. So fantastic job by the electric department. The metering department is doing some updating of some meters as well. They've got some that they're changing out. Streets and sewer, they are full on. It's every time this year. They are getting the pool up and running. They passed inspection on the first time, which was a fantastic job again. They actually put the pump back in a couple days ahead, got all that figured out. But at the same time, they are cutting grass more than what they probably really want to. But the grass is growing faster with the rain and the sun. But bring on more sun to get their grass to slow down from more revenue for the pool, less grass mowing. So they also did, they went and had ENIC evaluate Beatty Hughes, and we did some lifting of some trees, and we took down a couple that was needing to be done. I will put out the note that if everybody wants to start watching, the big sycamore has got a big hole cavity in the base of it that ENIC has made us aware of. It is not anything, we got to cut it down, but it is on the decline. So we are going to start watching it on a yearly basis to make sure that we get it before it gets us on the fall of that tree.
You talking about the one on Xenia?
No, I'm talking about the one on the back corner of Beatty Hughes.
Okay.
It was right next to the apartment
Parking lot
complex,
side.
or the apartment building that got tore down. I just wanted to make you aware of it. Last time we actually took down a big tree, you could actually see from the bottom up 25 feet, it was completely hollow. So just to make you aware that we are in the process of monitoring. We had about 7 or 8 that West South College, we had Eni take down some catalpas a couple years ago. He reevaluated them, and we have 7 or 8 that he says you need to take them down before they fall down. So we have now going to talk to the tree committee, but the tree committee sent us 4 yesterday that they said need to come down right away. So I will let you know when the catalpas are scheduled to come down. As fast as we take them down, I'll just say this, we lost 4 in the parking lot during the storm, and the tree committee's already got 2 planted back. So as fast as we can get them cleaned up, the tree committee is willing to plant them. We did do some highlighting for the yellow curbs prior to street fair. So there's no doubt if you're parked in a yellow zone and you get a ticket, there is no, hey, it was faded, it's highlighted, you're going to get a ticket for parking where you shouldn't park. So you'll see that. We did correct some things. We are working with them to get around school time to make sure that all the crosswalks are highlighted prior to school starting and making sure that we are keeping up on top of that. Let's see, 1,907 and increasing on the YS Connect. So that is a fantastic job by Channel 5 as well. And I am still ahead of schedule.
All right, any questions for Johnny? I think my only thing, can we do a goal check in the next manager's report? I don't remember what timeline, but we're kind of getting to the point where it feels like it'd be worth a check-in. I know there's things like, what's going on with the website that I don't need to ask one by one, but if we just did add that to the next one. Any other questions for Johnny? All right, next up is old business. So the first conversation is prioritization of village goals. I think Elise is gonna take a shot at getting us started, and that's it. So yeah, go for it, Elise. While Lisa's getting started, I'll just say the basic context here is we did the housing retreat. So this meeting is folding in the housing goals to so that would be sort of the final goals, and then a first pass at prioritization. So there's some more clarity for, especially for use of time and money of what priorities are for council. So that is me killing time. Go for it.
Thanks, Gavin. Nope, that's great. So yeah, we're really focusing on just priorities and what you think staff should be focusing on first. So these rankings, so basically each council member was asked to rank all 19 goals with number 1 representing the highest priority. So those rankings are compiled in attachment 1, which I think you all should have at your seats as well. And you'll see each score includes council member initials for reference over here on the very right priority level. So to help interpret this data tonight, I created attachment number 2, which is this goal priority alignment summary. So this helps us sort of visually see where the priorities are differing. So for each goal, you'll see what I'm calling a range, and that reflects the spread between the highest and lowest rankings. So green is indicating we have strong alignment from each council member. So if we take this one, for example, this is how the 5 of you rated this: 16, 16, 16, 17, and 18. That's showing close alignment, a variation of 2 between 16 and 18. So we're in the green for that one. So green, strong alignment. We've got 1 yellow for moderate. We also have red dots here, and I also added 1 with an asterisk. So the red dot with an asterisk is saying that there's a single outlier. So 4 of them are very close to each other, but there's 1 sort of outlying. So I would say the goal for tonight is really just to move towards alignment on what rises to the top, what falls in the middle, and what may be a lower priority for council. And so that will really help staff align, capacity and resources accordingly. So I would suggest maybe starting with where we're seeing the green dots, where we have strong alignment, and then we can move into yellow and the reds. There are a few areas, particularly within housing, where we do see alignment, and then on some of the other policy type things, that's where we start to see a spread. So happy to turn it over to council to see where you all would like to start.
Yeah, no, thanks, Elise. I want to throw out another way of looking at it, which is just, I think, so like, for example, green would signify, so like that one is green and essentially a very low priority,
Yes.
right? So another way of looking at this is like high, middle, low in terms of not alignment, but priority based on what everybody put in. So there are some like areas that are pretty clearly high, then kind of high to mid. I just did high, mid, and low and spread them out. So I think it's, I could just rattle them off real quick, but basically there's a relatively clear hierarchy that exists, and then there are, like Elise says, a number of them where there's sort of like an outlier, where somebody put it, and I am assuming that we do not want to go through and litigate every one, that we're trying to like just get generally, these are the directions. And so if it would be helpful, I could just rattle off the ones that are kind of in each of those buckets, and then we could just flag if there's something where you're like, wait a minute, I really want to make a case for this, or I think we need to talk more about it because there's notable dissonance. I think we would get to a place where we could pretty easily sort these based on, it's essentially like the averages.
Yeah.
It's pretty closely, instead of the range from the one to the biggest, it's the sort of total divided by 5, and in some cases the outlier notably changes the numbers, but it's relatively clear.
Yeah, that seems like a
So
good
okay,
starting
I'm going to
point.
just rattle them off. So the ones that are in the high priority are housing strategy. This is the summary of the words that are up there. Housing strategy, housing on village property, strategic plan, and aligned capacity. Those are the ones that are pretty clearly, and again, I'm factoring in outliers here too, but there's essentially a strong majority that would indicate that this would be on the high priority. Then high to mid is balanced budget, understanding the budget, and the rental housing management, and meaning, how do we as a village support and think about how to address rental housing needs. Then middle to high is environmental sustainability around housing, and then zoning update. Then the stuff that's in the middle, so by middle I'm essentially taking like 1 through 7 as like the top priority. Middle is sort of the next chunk, and then low. So middle would be economic development role and reducing vacancies. Mid to low is the pop-ups, CRA TIF, and Lawson Place. And then low is comms plan, sidewalks, and parking. And just a note that I assume we all were a little bit unclear about how to deal with like PPM or website, which are essentially like, we already did the PPM, and the website is, there's not really any council role per se, it's just a thing that's going to happen. And Lawson Place is like that to a certain degree, because we're just sort of waiting on the pro forma, and then we're going to talk about it. So anyway, that was how I processed it, and I feel like it's relatively clear, and I don't think that whether something is in high to mid or mid to high should mean that it's there's some notable decision. It's just like, this is the general range of what was responded to so that staff has an idea of where the priorities are. Are there other thoughts, perspectives, and anything in there where you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. I feel like I really want to make a case. I know I was the outlier and I want to argue for it to be higher, and I think that's substantial. So hearing none, the idea, I could basically, and again, these things line up with these aren't, it's just two different ways of looking at the numbers. So I could just give this list and then we would essentially just add a column, or we could either organize it based on priority. I think that would probably make sense to some degree, or have like here's the version that's organized based on focus areas, which is the version we have now. And then we could have another, like this, the back side of it could be, here's the goals organized by priority. And then at the next meeting, we could just share that out and make sure there's not any questions.
I want to know how many of these things do you, I mean, this all looks interrelated to me because that's how my brain works. So how many of these could be consolidated so that there weren't, I had a really difficult time and I had to come in because I was like, why are these, it seemed a little redundant to me. So I just wanted to see if we can, there's a lot of detail in every one, but there's so many that could be consolidated.
Yeah, do you want to note ones that you think might be able to be consolidated? Or if you don't want to do it on the spot, I guess I kind of look at this like less like we need to have, again, exact rankings on every one of these things. It seemed pretty obvious that like housing strategy was like a priority. And then as we focus on that strategy, then we might end up spending more or less time on some of the pieces that are inside of it. So yeah, either if you want to flag ones that you think could be consolidated now, or that could be a discussion for the next meeting.
Well, what I can do is sit down with it and put something together and see how, because like I said, it's everything is kind of concentric circles for me. I don't really have a lot of siloed thinking, so it was just like there's a lot, and then some of these are related. So I'll put something together.
It also sounds like what you did right now is already maybe a version of what Carmen's thinking about.
Yeah.
Like that's what I heard from you right now. You're already kind of, consolidating to some extent and having flow.
I didn't do any consolidating of like goals, like, goal 1 and 2 within community engagement. I was consolidating it based on level of interest, basically.
Yeah.
At which point I think it becomes relatively clear that like we all, I think, and I have to go back and see if there was an outlier on this one, but in general, the big picture housing stuff, strategy and what to do with our village property, ranked really high. And then there's other pieces that are like, well, and again, these all made it to the goal, so it's not like any of them are not priorities.
It won't be a big deal for me to stick to to get my idea out, like, and just send in a piece of paper.
Yeah. I think we should just put it on the next agenda, review this, and then anybody could share anything, and then at that meeting, we can try to make any adjustments to the actual document.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to this is not the focus areas of themselves, but the goals that led with strategy focus, like some sort of prerequisite to the thing, seem to be rated higher. So like when we talk about develop and run a thoughtful strategic planning process, it's like, yes, of course, like you're talking about, they go together. Of course, that has to come first before you get into what do we do next. Same thing for the housing strategy. Develop a clear, data-driven housing strategy. That's coming, that was very high for most of us.
Yeah.
Financial portion, identify and implement. In this case, there was and implement. But it was really just that understanding. And I think it just comes back to the whole strategic plan. Like this is what it seems to be coming down to, is matching the strategic plan with our capacity and then our financials. Like, and so it's a little bit hard for me to jump all the way down to like priority level.
Totally.
When we still haven't done the strategic plan. Like,
yeah.
So it's hard for me to say economic development is or is not a priority, or sidewalks are not a priority, when it's like first we have the strategic plan. And like you said, we're still waiting for a lot of information. I think this was a good thought exercise, but I think it would be somewhat of a disservice to use these as it currently stands as a set ranking.
Yeah.
Until we do some of these things. But I
Yeah.
think this next week, like you said, this will be the.
I think there's a bunch of things, like this feels like it's in lieu of having a strategic plan.
Yep.
This gives you some direction, and then if at any point, I think staff or council hits up against a decision point where you're like, wait a minute, this is pretty low on here, but we need to think about it now, well then bring it up.
Yep.
You know, it's not saying, it's directional.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think where the high, medium, low helps staff as well is when it comes into the projected timeline.
Yeah.
So like, for example, we can see here in the rankings that the develop a crisis plan and communications plan is pretty low on the priority, yet the timeline is to have that brought by summer. So does that make sense, right?
Very
Can we
much so.
push that out and then focus more on maybe some of the housing things or the strategic planning? So that's really where the high, medium, low helps us, is just then dictating and filling out some of these timelines that are still blank.
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, so that was my note, I put number 1, align capacity and goals, because, which is what we're doing. Like, I think we're definitely like in the process of it. But I think what I'm interested in also is hearing from staff, after the prioritization, does this make sense to you? Do you have capacity, enough resources, expertise to do this work, and what's missing for you guys? And for us to be really right on the same page about these goals and priorities, but is it practical from your perspective, and what's missing to get there?
I also think, just for me speaking, I think we could eliminate, the website, because staff is doing the website. We can eliminate, there was the website, and the PPM. Those are things that PPM's already done. Now, it'd be in the manager's goals that he completed for the year, but, we can eliminate it from this. That'd take 2 right off the list, because they already, we're hoping to have the website
By summer, by July.
by July. So
Yep.
those are things that we can keep on the goals list for coming back to council, but we can eliminate them off this big sheet, because we shouldn't be trying to prioritize those when we got other things to work on. So we can eliminate some of those.
Got it. I think we're on about the same page. Any last comments on this? All right, thanks Elise for your help.
Thank you,
So I made a note for future agenda. We'll have one last review next meeting. I think it'll be really quick. And just, Carmen obviously has expressed interest. If other people have things that you want to say, hey, add these, or sit down, feel free to weigh in with that before the next meeting. Okay.
Clarity, who do they weigh it into? They weigh it into Judy, they weigh it into Elise, or you? Just for clarity,
Yeah, I think.
And by when?
Yeah. I think, it was, the last time it was to Judy and Elise, right?
Okay.
And it feels like that's a good starting place?
Can we put a timeline on it so we're not waiting until the last
Yeah,
minute?
totally. Let's say share anything by,
Tuesday, Monday's a holiday.
Oh, packet week next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right? Because we have a meeting June 1st, Monday, June 1st.
so when would be totally comfortable, like,
Be great to have it by end of day Wednesday, the 27th.
and then you're turning around by Friday, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, and so by end of day Wednesday, the 27th, and I think in general with these things, it's like if people don't do it, then you assume everybody's good, we'll plow forward. Cool? Okay. Next thing up is residential sidewalk discussion. So I think I'm listed as, like, my name is next to it, but I think that's just to sort of facilitate. So I'm assuming that this is going to be Johnny or Elise?
It would be me.
Okay.
So the memo has got a lot of information in it, and I know you've read it, but I'll just give you a high overview. I was not here when the sidewalks are given to us to handle. And 14 is when I come, 18 is when I started doing sidewalks. Prior to that, they had a streetscape downtown, but majority of the work has been done. They had a streetscape in 16 on Xenia Avenue, but when $50,000 a year for maintenance is not going to get us caught up in any time soon. We've made a big headway, but what we ground in 18, 19, 20, and 21 is already ready to be done again because the trees are still growing, the trees are still heaving the sidewalk, so we got to do it all over again. So stats, I mean, we've added sidewalks, we've got grants for sidewalks, everything that they wanted to do in 2011, we have done. Dayton Street, they did the streetscape, that was the first one they did. The wrong trees were planted, so we're back in the same situation because the trees are 10 inches in diameter, and now we got 3.5, 4-inch gaps on raised parts of the sidewalk. So we can't get ahead of fixing what we own downtown and around the Bryant Center and the parks and all that, and fixing all these others in the neighborhoods. We just need some reprieve. Either we need a bunch of money to do it all one time, or we need to turn it back over to the homeowners. And we could also, there's several ways we could do it. We could have a yearly inspection on like the tree trimming and the sewer lining to where they're inspected once every 5 years. You give that to the homeowners. We can do a shared concrete to where we get the best pricing, and they can either pay that bill directly to the village or they can be assessed to the taxes. There's a bunch of things. I just want to stress that we have done a lot. We have added a bunch. We have fixed some pieces that are missing. We still got pieces that are missing, and we just can't get it done fast enough. And $50,000 a year is not going to cut it, and we still have not even touched the curbs that are missing in town. So.
And was that almost done? Can I?
Almost done. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go right ahead.
Well, is there the options you talked about were essentially more money? What was the other one?
More money, or we can give it back to
Or
them.
residents pay for it. And then I guess, is there a third option, which is that we lower our expectations? Meaning like, part of what is functionally happening, right, is that you're saying, hey, we're responsible for all this. We can only get so far with this much.
Correct.
And so you're kind of saying, look, this is frustrating. I can't fix everything with this much.
Correct.
We're already living with lower expectations.
Yeah, I guess that's a case, but we're getting weekly complaints, and we're getting, the trees are growing, so if we're not even keeping up, we're going to be way behind, and we're never going to catch up. So I think there needs to be some kind of either we're going to put a bunch of money towards them and we're going to try to knock it out in a couple of years, and then we got to be done with it. If we're just keep on moving down this route, we're still going to keep putting money into sidewalks. It's a continuous maintenance thing. I've lived in my house for 32 years and I've replaced my sidewalks 5 years ago. I hope I don't have to do it again, but but there's only one other place that we found, and it's a small village, Ottawa, that has the same thing.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the best way to approach this is, but I guess maybe we just open it up first for, are there kind of initial questions or thoughts? And then I guess I kind of want to get like a temperature check of how are folks thinking about this. So any initial kind of questions or thoughts before we do a temperature check?
Okay, I'll kick off a couple thoughts. I think one question I have and that I've heard from people is like, what are the options if it's a cost that the property owners cannot stomach? How is that decided, or what is the redress for people in that situation, in that scenario? And then I think another question I had is, looking at option 2 or option 3, to me, it seems like there's a lot of potential work there, communication, and then reviewing, and then having to decide, and disagreement. So calculating in the number, the amount of work, staff time, and if that's accounted for. In one ways, yes, it's decreasing the amount of work for the actual repairs, right, or cost of repairs, but to me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, but we might be getting a whole lot more of people coming in here disagreeing with the village's decision about their sidewalk and what needs to be done. So I think just throwing that piece into the equation. And yeah, I'm curious to think more about this amount of the 100,000, or like what would it take, or what is that range between 50 and 100 to get it to the point where the village is still responsible, but not the amount of financial strain or time and effort on the staff.
I would agree. I feel like in some ways, it's kind of just shifting the labor from one thing to the other, from outside to indoors, as far as that goes. But the flag for me is this, this affordability, word that is just such a key word for everything, and how this helps that situation in our community, with just the average resident, who's got sidewalks, who doesn't, where most of those actually are, the demographics of the neighborhoods where those are located versus where they're not. So I think there's a lot of things we have to consider, with that. Of course, it's not an easy answer. But also I'd like to see us, investigate alternative ways to fund the sidewalks, Like if we looked at this was working and this is why we took over the sidewalks in 2011, because there was all this there, what is there now, and are we looking, at what's there now?
Other initial thoughts?
I think I do have, I do have some concerns about the affordability issue, and also, I don't want to get into anybody's pockets, but there are instances where it's hard to stomach, or there are instances where it's not a possibility. So there's that piece, and I would consider thinking about more of a hybrid model, or phasing into kind of a hybrid model, where there could be an opportunity to work with folks who couldn't afford it. But it's kind of like, at this point, they say throwing good money after bad, because we're just catching up. Like we're just catching up. And so I don't know, I don't think a little bit more about how, obviously we should prioritize what's publicly funded, like our, what's the village's land. We should prioritize our, our land, our sidewalks. But I don't know, just it's one of the things that Johnny said about, trees grow, and what happens there. We're already, that's been what, 2011?
2011.
Yeah, 2011, and now we got to deal with some of that stuff. I don't know, that wasn't helpful, but just spitballing. just thinking thoughts.
Well, I'll just throw in a couple of my thinking thoughts. I feel like one of the core, when I tried to process it, the two kind of core questions that came up for me are essentially, should non-sidewalk property owners contribute to sidewalks? So effectively right now, like I own a house that has a sidewalk. Somebody who owns a house that doesn't have a sidewalk is paying to help maintain my sidewalk, essentially. And so it just becomes a question of, and I don't mean to too oversimplify it, but in general, should people on the south side of town help pay for people on the north side of town that have sidewalks?
And with this model, they are.
And with this model, they are,
Right.
exactly. And so if you move away from this model, then essentially, and again, oversimplification, because it's not quite this straightforward, but the south side people do not contribute to sidewalks. The core question is essentially, do we need the money? And so, because I don't mean to, I think in the end, if the sidewalks need to be maintained at whatever quality level we expect, one way or the other, somebody's going to have to pay for it, and we're going to have to administer some of it. It would really not make sense to have every single homeowner do it independently, because then we lose out on all the economy of scale of doing them in chunks. So, again, it's oversimplified, but I'm assuming the money's going to get spent one way or the other to whatever standard we set. The question is it going to be a growing cost for that the village is going to take on, and therefore all residents take on, or is it going to be and not just residents, I suppose. I mean, any revenue source is going to the general fund that's paying for this. So I think, for me, this kind of feels like it becomes a budget question of like, if it's going to cost, like if we said, hey, if we had $100,000 every year and that could get us up to par, we could feel like we could manage it at that level. Well, then it's just a question of, do we have $50,000 more every year that we want to put toward this, or would we rather effectively have the owners of houses that have sidewalks get $100,000 less in benefit each year? And that, to me, that feels like a budget question of and I feel like we're making some real headway on understanding the degree to which we have a budget problem or not. Remember the last Finance Committee summary, I think we're on the right track of understanding it. And then you put that, whatever it is, if it's 50 grand roughly, into context, it becomes is that our priority with what to do with 50 grand? For example, if you told me that we could make all the owners pay, and then that money would go directly into other forms of affordability, well then I'm more interested than if it's just 100 that goes into the general pot. So anyway, this is a long way of saying that I think there's two core questions, and I generally land on that people that are not living in places with sidewalks should help contribute to what is effectively, we're treating it as a public good, and that I don't know yet the degree to which we need the money, but I totally hear the math isn't working component.
Let me just talk about the math not working. We require sidewalks if you build something. So Springs Meadow has put in how many sidewalks? The high school is getting ready to put a sidewalk in from Mary's Way to Dayton Street. That now becomes our problem to maintain, just like the multimodal path. It's a great multimodal path, but we maintain it. So every time a sidewalk is added, we're adding to more labor, more work, more things to do. So.
Yeah. Okay. Can we do like a sort of temperature check on, they've got the three options. I think I heard Carmen kind of you suggesting sort of like a fourth option a bit of like maybe some kind of phasing. But could we just do a quick temperature check on where are you at? Because I think this becomes a question of like if everyone is in, sorry, I don't have the memo in front of me, the option that is effectively do nothing about the financial responsibility, maintain current policy, then there's not really a whole lot more to talk about in the short term. There's a longer conversation in budget. Whereas if there's a lot of interest in option two, well then we need probably to talk a little bit more about what the next steps look like, because there's no world in which we don't have some process. I know you put in the memo that had some differentiation of next steps, but we need some more clarity. So does
Another
anybody
option
know?
could be is to wait until we get the capital improvement plan together so we know what every piece of sidewalk would cost. And we've had our first meeting, get ready to have a second meeting, so that would be the fourth option that's not in there. To just push it until it's in the capital improvement plan, we know what the cost of it is.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? For sure.
Okay, so I'm hearing multiple people saying the fourth option of let's wait and talk about it when we have a capital improvement plan, which should give us the capital costs of all of our projects so that we have a better sense of, this all falls into the understand our budget standpoint. I think, so I guess it seemed like I was hearing enough that there was a majority on that. Is there anybody who wants to speak up for some other option? Okay, so hearing that, I think what we're saying is it's not off the table entirely. There's an awareness that there are things to talk about, but that we're going to acknowledge that we're going to talk about it more after we come back to capital improvement plan.
Yep.
Okay? All right. The next thing up is municipal land trust information, and this is Carmen.
Me. So I think that, I mentioned municipal land trust before, a couple meetings ago, and the memo that I provided, I think, provides a great deal of clarity, kind of weighing which one does what, a community land trust versus a municipal land trust. I wanted to kind of highlight the contrast, because a CLT is pretty much strictly to hold land permanently for affordable or long-term affordability, versus a CLT, which can do both. So mixed income, full market, still kind of removing land from, the majority of the land from the market, but it can preserve, some housing affordability indefinitely, and then have some market rate housing. It mixes up the economic diversity. It promotes economic diversity, and it also has broader housing outcomes and less reliance on local subsidy, ongoing local subsidy. That's the main difference between the two. Because I know that there was some questions about what an MLT was versus a CLT.
Is it okay to ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the thing that I am not totally clear on is what is it that you want us to do? Or like when we talked earlier about like nesting of goals. Like I guess I'm kind of in the boat of like, if we get the Bowen study, we all strongly agree we want to set goals, so we want to have X number of each kind of units. And then we all have a lot of desire to do development on, our property, the Village owns. If we work on that, and in the process of working on that, we identify, having a municipal land trust would be a good tool in order to help that development happen successfully. Cool. I guess I'm kind of in the place where I don't know enough about what we're going to do or what the tools are, who would be the person or people that would decide what tools.
That is precisely the reason why I put this in the packet, because when I brought it up, it was like, what is the municipal land trust? And so this is a 101 version of what a municipal land trust is. And it is an incredibly powerful tool, and there are many municipalities using this model all over the country to help solve the housing issues that we're having all over the place. And so that's why I included it. I intended it to be baseline educational, so that people can look at this and then do some more research research other models. So that's why I included it, because it is a tremendous tool and it's worth taking a look at, especially for our unique circumstances.
Cool. So you're basically saying, hey, I wanted to put it into the discourse and give people a chance to start thinking about it, but there's not like we need to do X, Y, or Z right now.
We don't need to do X, Y, or Z right now. This is just something that when we start talking about developing on publicly owned land, this is something that is important for that conversation.
Got it. Are there other questions for Carmen? Okay, good then. The next thing that's up on here is discussion of fewer meetings during June, July, August. Longtime listeners will remember that we talked about this at our initial council retreat at the beginning of the year. This is sort of related to the goal around capacity alignment and trying to find better work-life balance. The idea of trying to limit the number of summer meetings came up. We looked at it at agenda planning briefly, and if I mess this up at all, speak up. But I think we're a little bit too late to make too many changes this summer. So we already have one, it's standard practice to do one less meeting in August. We're definitely doing that. Just based on the timing, if we tried to get one out in June and out in July, it would be basically impossible to not have a long enough stretch that it would become a real pain. But it feels like there could be some room to remove the second meeting in June.
Correct.
Which would, it sounds like it would be a benefit for staff, and we also already have another meeting in June because of the follow-up to the housing conversation, so it's not like we're not going to be doing anything. So anyway, so I think the ultimate suggestion right now is one less meeting in June, take away the second meeting in June, and then the future self-planning is if we looked ahead to next year, we could almost certainly go to one meeting a month in June, July, and August. We just have to plan appropriately so that they don't go back to back, so that there's not too long of a drought in between meetings. So is that a fair statement?
And I suggested June because after the first weekend in June, literally staff has got Street Fair, Pride, Juneteenth, and 4th of July. So that would give us a little bit of breathing room as well.
And to be clear, when you look at our future agenda, I mean, that's a part of the puzzle and great, and there's a part of the puzzle which is that we don't have a big backlog of stuff. So it's not like there's, a series of conversations that this is going to delay.
We like that.
I do. I love that. So I think I don't know, we need a motion or something, but is everybody cool with the idea of not doing a meeting doing the second meeting in June, and then noting to self that for next year, if we plan ahead a little further, we might be able to even cut out one more?
So not doing the second meeting in June now on the
Correct,
table.
in 2026.
All right, we need a motion
Yeah.
for that?
I don't know why you would. I also
Cool.
don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, it really just needs to be publicized all to heck and gone, and we will.
Okay.
Great.
Everybody okay with that? I'm hearing if,
I, for one, would love a motion.
okay.
That Amy, man, I
Okay.
Honest guy.
I felt like maybe there needed to be a motion.
You don't need to
So-
see her or hear her.
I know,
feel it.
right?
Okay, I make a motion.
From on high. I'll make Angie, you're gonna make the motion? You're gonna make the motion? And I'll second the motion.
Great.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
You're going to talk about
The motion to remove the June meeting. The second June
Cancel the
meeting.
second meeting in June.
Was it 18th?
15th.
15th?
June 15th.
15, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, we're moving on. We're now in new business, and we're at consideration of updates to the Village Mediation Program Coordinator job description, and this one is back to you, Carmen.
All right, so I think everyone got the letter that was, the memo that was provided. And what I want to do is have the opportunity to talk to the coordinator and 2 steering committee members and 2 members of council before we go any further with this. But I do want to take a moment to address the letter that came from one of the steering committee members regarding how the mediation program is set up. Yes, it's true, it's not a commission of council, but the coordinator position is paid from public funds through a stipend, and that makes it associated with council. So we do have some say on how it's run and how the funds are spent. And then as for, there was some stuff in here regarding whether or not I've attended a VMP steering committee. There's been some, a lot of, shall we say, gaps in communication. I've reached out. Sometimes I am looped into conversations around VMP. Sometimes I'm not. And so what I'd like to do is get with at least 2 members of the steering committee, Gavin and Johnny and the coordinator. And we need to find a way and a date and times that work for everybody so that we can facilitate that conversation.
So I have a friendly question.
What's that?
Which is there anybody who like really wants to do this? Like in terms of like like if I'm the second one, I'll do it if I have to. But is there anybody else is it open, like you said, 2 council members? Is there anybody who wants to do it? Like who wants to be part of the, I'm not saying I don't exactly, I'm just like a little overwhelmed at the moment, so just checking in.
I've actually had mediation training, so if you don't want to, I'd be glad to jump on.
Is that, this all sounds good to me, and then I'll just say, it would be really great to get, here is the structure, like here is how it works. And if there's places where like there's disagreement of this is how it works, and then I think particularly what I'm trying to figure out is what is our role at council? And then what is village manager role? That would be helpful.
You want a chart?
I love a chart. You know I love a chart.
Okay.
So that would be really helpful. Yeah, I think that's it.
You mean as an outcome of that meeting to come back to us?
Sure,
that
that like I
information?
think it's like I'm trying to figure out like are we the ones that are supposed to figure this out? I don't know. It's not clear to me whose job it is. So if that could be a starting place.
I can tell you whose job they don't want it to be.
Yeah.
And that, I would really like for it not to be under the manager, but that's just me personally. Because I don't know enough of it, you know?
Well, the thing about the mediation program is that it exists, like one of the emails that I sent out was like, I'm not a helicopter council member. And as long as people are saying that the program is working, then I'm fine. When people start saying, hey, the program isn't working in one capacity or another, or, in how it's flowing, or, how the mediations are being handled, then there's time to step in there. But it is still, the stipend is still provided with public funds.
Correct, I agree with you.
And I think important to have some separation between village mediation and village manager, just because PD, our police department, uses so much of the village mediator. So
Right.
we need to have some sort of arm's length there because of that.
So yeah, I would hope that whatever the structure is, and if there's some disagreement and needs to be decided, then let us know. The other thing I meant to say is, if it would be great, I would just like to have like a summary of the like activities and sort of values of the program. Meaning like, is it like, because I think this question of like, just what is it doing and how well is it going? We haven't really talked about this in my tenure in any meaningful way. So if we're going to be asked to make some decision about a thing, it'd be nice to know, like, I don't know, just how is it going?
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything? Okay, so it sounds like there's the coordinator, 2 steering committee, 2 council that are Carmen and Stephanie, and the village manager are going to have a meeting and mediate the mediator. Everything's going to get figured out. And then some portion of you will follow up whenever there's something that needs to be discussed?
Yep.
Okay.
I think I just answered for Carmen, but
Yeah.
sorry.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to move on unless there's anything else. All right, next up is boards and commissions. Are there any things that anybody needs to bring up that they didn't put in writing or did, or anything they want to say?
You just saw what PACC did. We got people now, which is awesome.
That was like
And
a
we got awesome
retooling
people.
right
We got
there.
great
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Sweet.
Did you say retooling?
It was a retooling.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's in front of you somewhere. There's so many papers here, but I was just going to flag that in the Planning Commission, we sort of shared out goals. I think it's talked about goals for Planning Commission. For the most part, it's like kind of a pause, get the Planning and Zoning Administrator or Director situated. The one thing that had like everyone was interested theoretically was in Keats Alley and doing like some thinking about steps around Keats Alley. So I guess I just wanted to take a quick temperature check of like, do y'all, and there would have to, we've talked about this before, this would not be like a, make a plan for Keats Alley. It would be like, start thinking about options where it would be sort of driven by the commission members as opposed to by having some expectation of staff doing anything on the front end. And so just want to check to see, are y'all hearing that and going?
So,
Yeah.
can you be more specific about what you mean with Keith Alley? Are you talking about the park?
I think and it was not totally clear, but I think the idea is that there's been discussion about, and we've talked about this in years past, about the idea of Keats Alley in some way becoming more of a, pedestrian-friendly thoroughfare. And so I think there was just, I was honestly somewhat surprised that of all the things, that was a thing where everybody was like, yeah, I want to think about that. And so I'm just kind of doing a temperature check, because if this group's like, nope, definitely not going to be a priority, then we'll just tell that back to them. Most of the other things that people express interest in are going to require other steps first. Like there's interest in talking about zoning, but that's not going to happen until we clarify our housing goals, et cetera. So I'm just trying to get a quick temperature check, and if it's yes, then I would then try to work with that group and the planning and zoning director to spell out sort of a scope of what they could do without it being cumbersome. If it's not sure, then we could circle back about it at some point. If it's a no, then we'll just not prioritize it.
I need more. I need some more. Pedestrian, more use.
Yeah.
Specifically what? Like, are we talking about the grass? We're talking about like what? Because depending upon what the group is thinking about, there's different funding available for it. This ODNR grant was actually is actually something that could be used for that. But weird, there's a lot of funding for different uses. I mean, there's funding available for different uses. So I would need some more specific. Be more specific.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on it?
I would throw I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued by it. I think now again, this kind of goes back into the economic development piece that that I'm in favor of, and exploring new ideas and options, and we see what's happening along the main thoroughfare. And if there's any sort of injection of energy, creativity, and the arts, I think Keith's Alley has enormous potential. What that looks like and how it gets done, I'm not there yet mentally. There's so many other, but the idea of it and what it can be, especially for our community, there's enough intrigue there for me to pursue, for sure.
Okay. I saw kind of a nod of agreement from Stephanie. Angie, you kind of in the same place?
Yeah, I think definitely for me, it falls within the economic development, vitality, and I would say, it's not on this list, doesn't mean, I think there's a lot of interest, but I think there's also, we have a shared commitment of wanting to stay on track and focused. So for me, that's like a prioritization timing question of like, yeah, let's like Carmen said, let's get more details, and then let's talk about where that fits into the bigger picture.
That seemed like a pretty good summary. I saw a bunch of nods. So I would go back and gather any more specificity and then, okay. All right, that was my little thing. Anything else on boards and commissions?
I'll throw one out. The MVRPC, I forwarded off to a few of you, I believe, that the major new capacity projects, the track application, was postponed at the last meeting. They did not disclose the why of it all. But that is a very large a large entity or project to postpone. I'm not exactly sure why. They are asking for municipalities that were interested to continue the thought process because it could come back online anytime. I don't want to speculate, but it didn't sound too promising that it was coming back right now. It sounds like there's some funding issues behind it. So that's the only urgent update, I'd say, because I know we had talked about putting some manpower behind that.
Got it. Any other boards and commissions? All right, we have reached future agenda. Allergies are winning with me right now, so I'm not going to pull up yet another screen and fill in our little system. But the things that I flagged were reviewing goals at the next meeting, and then on the someday list would be village mediation program, and then and then I just made a note from the citizen comments that I'm gonna just someday it might be good to do a transportation summary as a special report kind of thing. Are there any other future agenda items?
Transportation summary, would that?
Oh, you remember there was a question about how the senior center transportation might work, and I know I've kind of wondered more broadly how do all of the options work, and
And that would be, who would be charged with that?
oh, I don't know. It's purely this would be on the maybe someday no great plan list. Anything else on future agenda?
Yeah, feeding wild animals in the village. I'm not, what are you looking at me like that for?
You gonna stop people?
I mean, it's a thing. I'm not talking about I don't need the bird lobby or nothing like that, because that's not what I mean. But there've been some concerns brought up around the deer population and feeding Bambi bags of corn and apples.
Maybe Environmental Commission could do some outreach right there.
Outreach isn't stopping people from doing it.
It's not against the law, so.
Well, not.
Technically it is, you're baiting the deer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you're saying maybe we should talk about
Thank you, Johnny.
this thing. What are other people, I assume I assume the hesitance from Judy, it feels like it's a whole can of worms.
Well,
So it
it
gets
doesn't
into,
have to be, I'm not doing any can of worms. It doesn't have to be a can of worms. It does not have to be a can of worms, and I'm not making it a can of worms. I will come back and I will do some investigations and some comparison and contrasting, and I'll look at other municipalities, and we'll figure it out.
Let me just say, Carmen is not the only one. I get about 10 phone calls a week about people wanting me to hire sharpshooters to shoot deer in the village.
What?
Oakwood, not Oakwood. Oakwood did it years ago, but Oxford just spent $45,000 last year, and they called 100 deer and fed the homeless. So I've been given those information. It's about 10 emails a week that I get about what the deer are doing. So I do think it's a great thing to bring back just to talk.
Or we could just get wolves back.
Other council members?
Bring back the wolves.
This is so are there three people who want to add this to a future agenda? That's the question on the table here.
What exactly would we be adding to the agenda then?
So,
Criminalizing BP.
no, don't say criminalize, don't do that. Don't do that.
What would it be called?
An ordinance or an introduction of an ordinance for feeding wild animals, and it is baiting.
Only if you kill them after that.
That also, we can have this discussion offline. I'm bringing it because people are asking me about it. That's why I'm bringing it.
Agreed.
That's why I'm bringing it.
So, yeah, I think it is an interesting discussion. It is an issue, and I think to Angie's point, I think I'm like, I don't know if I want to get sucked into a bit, and that's what we're saying. If there's some way to like make it not.
Yes.
So for example,
Okay. Yes.
not feeding is a very different thing than actively hunting, right? Right. So there would be steps along the way. But is there anybody else that's interested in this? Because we've got to have 3 people to say, we want to work on this, otherwise it's not for now.
I mean, is that the goal of what you're trying, is to get it on the
Is to
thing?
get it on the book, just to talk about it and think about what we can do legislatively to. We have, you can't use Roundup in your yard, like that's part, we have a weed ordinance that's still on the books.
Okay. So I have an idea, because I just feel a little like, I don't know enough about this. I feel a little caught off guard. It's like, I don't want to vote right now, personally. Could you have something in the packet with more information?
Sure.
And then we put 5 minutes on the agenda at some point to discuss it, and then there's a vote after we have more written information, 5 minutes discussion.
Sure.
Take a vote then. Do we want to discuss or not? But I just feel like I don't know enough. I feel a little like limited in my understanding of this topic, and I also honestly like I have no idea like how important this is. Is it the same 10 people who email you every week about it, or is it more? It's a bigger part of the community.
They're getting a bigger crowd.
So
Okay,
yeah, I'd like
so
to understand. More.
I think
Sounds great.
that sounds
I'm
good,
down.
Angie. Carmen's good with it, so that's 3 of us. So we'll add 5 minutes to a future agenda. I guess there's also like I'm not hearing this as like a timely thing. So it's like give us a little bit of latitude to look over the agenda and figure out where to plug it in. But at a meeting soon, we'll have some more conversation. And Carmen, you would start with putting some stuff in the packet. That sound good?
Yep.
Any other future agenda?
I had a question. You know, I'm working on the next housing retreat agenda. I just wanted to check in if that's something that people would want to review at a meeting, or if we need to review it.
Yeah, we need to, yeah.
Yeah.
Get with me on that before it comes to anything.
Yeah. So should we just make a note that we need to touch base about how to ramp it all up?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And so then you're saying that would be on the next agenda, would be housing meeting agenda. Cool. And while we're at that, is there a Bowen timeline? Is it shifted?
It's in my email right now for me to review before I tell them to finalize it.
Great.
Okay. Cool. All right. Anything else?
All 254 pages.
Okay. All right.
We set the date for the next housing retreat, right? Okay.
Yes, which escapes my mind at this point, but it's in
Can we
June.
have more discussion about Keys Alley and Jim Planning?
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
15 or something like that.
Okay.
I'm looking it up too. It's the
Keys Alley for agenda planning.
25th, right?
25th.
25th?
25th, that's right, it was the last week, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if we're not doing the second meeting in June, probably need to bring the agenda June
Yeah.
1st.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's gotta
Cool.
come, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, think we're all set. Motion to adjourn,
So moved?
second.
Everybody's.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Aye.